and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed. Welcome to it. Welcome to our first time chatter. I hope you enjoy the channel. If you have any questions about what we're doing, or any questions that you have yourself, you are carrying in your quest as a human being to discover the nature of your own mind and your own self, please share them in the chat. We can chat about them. So, today we are learning philosophical midwifery, the art, the skill and the art of uncovering and removing the root cause of human problems. Ever noticed how
no one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems?
That's our friend from Some More News on the YouTube channel, which is worth checking out. All of his videos are pretty much making that point. We as human beings, individually, collectively, and as a species, don't seem to be learning.
No one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems.
Learning, growing, or addressing actual problems. Why is that? Because we have to rediscover or relearn the art of philosophical midwifery, which is specifically the new, as the title says, the new paradigm for understanding human problems. Currently, we do not have a paradigm. That's why modern psychotherapy doesn't have a model, so it borrows from the medical model. It thinks that the cause of human problems are physical illnesses and prescribes drugs and so on. And as people are starting to learn, we accept psychotherapy as an eclectic model, meaning people can pick and choose whatever opinions they want, or models or modes they want in their psychotherapeutic practice, varying levels of hitting the mark. If they get lucky, often missing. So a lot of people are very, not trusting of shrinks, have a lot of negative experiences because they seem to want to bring up trauma without having a model of understanding the cause of problems, and therefore just forcing people to relive negative experiences, which doesn't help anyone. So that's not everyone's experience, of course. Maybe you've gotten lucky, but that seems to be a general consensus. But of course it is, because there is no paradigm, there's no model for what causes human problems and how to address it. Until now. Dun dun dun. Where's my wow sound effects? Where are my other sound effects? They have been removed. Oh, lordy. More problems with my build of my sound. So, we are learning the paradigm for the cause of a certain class of human problems that cause us to remain stuck in repeating cycles of failure, and not only that, prevents us from responding maturely and rationally to any evidence or reason that show that our root false belief about the self, reality, and what's good and worth doing is false. Hi, welcome to the chat. 2 first-time chatters today. It's a party. That's why that one person was clapping. Right. There we go. All right. So, philosophical midwifery, the art and practice of understanding the root cause of human problems and how to address them. We are reading the book, and we are up to chapter 5. If you're new and you want to go back and read along with us at your own pace, you'll find playlists on the YouTube page, and there's a link below. And you can follow along on the live stream in either Twitch or YouTube as well. And if you join the Discord, you'll get a notification when we go live. So, where are we so far? Well, we're at chapter 5, where we have a mental health stream. Kind of, yeah. Yeah. It's kind of okay, let's do a quick overview for the new people here. All right. That's not how this is supposed to be. Let's just move it over to the right spot over here. And then fix this up here. So we can scribble on the board. There we go. There we go. So, what we have been doing is learning about four things. Four things that are the four aspects of a single art. The single art is called philodianoia. It's a new word that we made up ourselves. Why is that? Because what we understand as philosophy is not really philosophy. We have been being lied to. We have been lied to for a long time because what we take as philosophy is actually what Socrates calls not philosophy, the love of wisdom, but philodoxia. Philodoxia is the fancy word for love of opinions. So if you go to school to learn about philosophy, they feed you a bunch of opinions. Here's Kant's opinions, here's Hegel's opinions. And what do you do with them? You go on some silly YouTube program to debate opinions with other people's opinions. No one learns anything and no one grows.
No one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems.
Why is that? Because opinions are things that we gain from our sense perception, like our eyes and our ears and our sniffer. There we go, the sniffer. Which is able to perceive the physical world or the world of becoming. The physical world that we see through our physical senses is always changing. However, Socrates says, well, you know what you need to do is you need to love learning. That's a thing that Socrates calls philo, which means love, philomethesis, which is a fancy word that you can use to impress your friends over coffee. By the way, we have a fun game. When I say coffee, I have a sip of coffee. And I say cheers. Cheers. Philomethesis, which is a fancy word for the love of learning. Learning. If you are loving of learning about things you encounter in your world, things that you love, things that you want to achieve, yourself, your relationships, your problems, you want to learn how to understand the cause of your problems and remove them. These are things that you start with as a human being, because you start by looking through your peepers and your sniffers and your hearers. So you gain a bunch of opinions and things from the world of becoming. But Socrates says, then you start to ask certain questions of yourself, or hopefully you have friends in your life, or a partner, or maybe even an awesome content creator, streamer, who asks you questions like, hey, what's the most interesting things you've seen in the physical world? How about beautiful things? There is a beautiful woman, you can tell, because of her sweet titties. There we go. Beautiful things. Aren't we interested in that? How about things like justice? How would I draw justice? Okay, don't know. I'll just put a question mark. I'll just write justice. Hey, aren't we interested and attracted to things we consider beautiful? Don't we seek justice in our world? Don't we get annoyed when the referee makes a bad call or somebody kicks a puppy? Ever seen those things? I mean, you experience them as adjectives, as descriptors: a beautiful woman, a beautiful painting, a beautiful sunset, a just person, a just referee, hopefully a just ruler. But if there are many things of what you're interested in the physical world, what's the root cause or the noun that allows for these adjectives? Then you might ask a follow-up question. Do you think beauty or justice would exist even after you die? Do you think an alien species might recognize something like beauty or justice? Or 1 and 1 equals 2, or something like that? In other words, irregardless of time and space, do these principles or causes apply? You are waking up to what Socrates calls philosophy. Philos, which means love, Sophia. Sophia is the way that we can apprehend this other dimension called the realm of being. Dun, dun, dun. Being. It doesn't change, it's eternal, but you can't look at it through your physical senses. It's like you can't hear color or you can't smell sound. Equally so, to perceive this realm, we need to awaken a sense we have called ousia. It's the sense that our mind has. It's our sixth sense, like that movie, that allows us to turn around and experience our mind itself. It's a Greek word, but we need to use it because we don't have a word for it in English yet. Like croissant or schadenfreude. Sometimes we need to borrow a word from another language and make it our own so we can use it. This is the realm of being that's eternal. Now, in philosophy, we want to understand it. Not just understand it, but experience it. Because we can either before you've had the experience, leading up to it, or after you've had the experience, you might recognize that there are, even though it's a oneness, or what the Taoists call enlightenment, there are actually aspects to it. Like, you might experience it and talk about it after as beauty itself, or as the Greeks say, self-beauty. The noun. Everything is perfectly ordered the way it needs to be. Self-justice. It's experienced as bliss, the greatest possible experience, because you know everything all at once, or wisdom. Okay, so the experience of it we call nous. So I'm throwing a bunch of terms at you, but you can ignore the terms and just get the ideas. You can experience it, we call that nous. But you can also understand it. That word for understanding that can also be applied to the realm of being is called dianoia. So these are the aspects of that experience that is eternal, that is immortal, that is the causes and principles for our physical world. It's the model of our physical world. And Socrates says, hey, that's philosophy. Once you wake up and you realize that learning isn't just about the physical world, learning is a gateway into philosophy. And he in the Phaedo, which we read on the channel, we finished the Phaedo. So we read Socrates' words in the Balboa translation of Plato. Plato wrote about Socrates' words, his dialogues he had with people. And all of the past translations of Plato have been garbage up until now. But now we have an actual translation with all of the right words, so we can finally, for once, listen to what Socrates told us about the nature of humanity, the meaning of life, where we came from before we were born, where we're going after we die, and what we should be doing while we're here. The questions that would make you rational. If you woke up in a video game, you'd probably want to know, well, what's the goal of the game? And how do I play? So we ignore those questions because we have been ignoring true philosophy. Oh, we've already written it down, philosophy. There we go. So on this channel, we learn to read in a new way, without interpretation, It's not, what does this book mean to you? Well, to me, it means Jesus lives in my ear. No. That's just, you're just making shit up now. That's how they teach you to read at school, but we are learning how to read properly, which means not adding stuff that isn't there, not leaving out stuff that is there. That's interpretation. So it's not interpretive. But also we look for questions and puzzles. So being curious and puzzled and carrying those questions and puzzles as we go. And we look for possible solutions or hypotheses within the text itself. Like Sherlock Holmes, you look for the clues. Well, you look for the puzzle, what's the crime? But then you have to look for the clues, and you have to solve the puzzle of the crime using the clues. You can't just make stuff up. So that's how we learn to read. Okay? So, that's true philosophy. But the thing is, we're not computers. We can't just input the correct things and then all of a sudden we get wisdom. What happens is, the steps towards our highest goals, we face something called blocks. So we have to do two things. We have to learn to read true philosophy, which you can only do by reading the Balboa translation. Why? Because it's actually the right words for the first time in history. And it's the right words of somebody who has gone through this journey. Socrates is a master of this game. So we read true philosophy, and we have to also read the book on and practice. This is not just dry reading. Everything you read, you apply in your life to test whether or not you're able to do it. The philosophical midwifery book, which is how to remove human problems. How to remove those blocks. So you can say, well, what's interesting is the activity, dianoia, is the activity of reading philosophy and the same activity in reading midwifery. We learn to understand by applying a method called the dialectic, which is the structure of the logos. The logos is the understandability that flows through reality. The fact that we can understand our problems, the fact that we can understand wisdom, the fact that we can understand even what's beyond wisdom to cause wisdom. The fact that we live in an understandable reality and we can verify our understanding, indirect experience, knowledge, that's the logos. Again, another Greek word. So what? So, when we're reading philosophy, we are applying the dialectic, which is the structure, the pattern, has 4 parts. So it's only 4 parts, not hard. The dialectic, which is the structure of the logos. The same thing to midwifery. But also, the thing is, your blocks are only blocks because, well, for lots of reasons, but to get the specific content you need to address your blocks, you need to also do dream analysis. Because your guide, your guru, your spiritual guide, where you get the specific content of your problems that you are blind to, that comes through studying your dreams. Socrates pointed this out in the Republic in Book 9. But what's interesting is the way of not interpreting dreams. It's not make-em-ups. We're actually serious about this. We actually want to solve our problems. We actually don't want to continue our cycles of suffering. We actually don't want humanity to be destroyed because people are fucking stuck in their problems. It's the same dialectic and logos. And by the way, as you go, don't you want to share it with your friends? But this is kind of hard. Like even right now, I probably lost a lot of people who came to the chat because it's kind of complicated. And it's challenging. It challenges your view of philosophy. I thought philosophy was just a dusty old academic thing. Or I thought philosophy was just about debating people with your dumb opinions. Or I thought problems are just emotional and you can't solve problems. Or I thought problems are just chemical. You just have to squirt some chemicals in your brain and your problems go away. So it's challenging to our deeply held beliefs. The cause of our problems are a certain class of deeply held beliefs. A belief. Now we're interested in, of course, understanding, which can take you into the love of learning. You're not learning if you're just believing somebody else. That's what belief means, is to believe someone else. And you can't grow because it's not yours. You have to just believe mummy or daddy or the guy with the big hat at church or at the mosque or at the whoever you're believing. So we have to go through the process of removing our false beliefs and upgrading to understanding. And that's normally what we think of as learning. You might have some beliefs about how animals work from picture books when you're a kid, but we all know that when you go to veterinary college, you're not interested in your beliefs, you're interested in finding out your false beliefs and dropping them. That's not actually how cats and dogs work, and developing understanding. That's just learning. We take that for granted. But the issue is, there is a certain class of belief that is resistant to that learning. We don't learn. And if anything challenges it, we get fucking pissed off. How dare you say this? I'm a Catholic. You don't see, notice? It's not I have a Catholic belief. I'm identified with it. Not only that, if this is wrong, my beloved images of my family members and my idea of love is wrong. It means my stupid parents were stupid their whole lives. And I don't want that because my mother is a saint. My daddy is the best daddy ever. He can beat up your daddy. This is a kind of barbaric loyalty or blind loyalty to the tribe, or this goes all the way back to caveman times, the cave leader. So you might notice there's some things like Nazis who think we are the best. Why? Because dear leader says so. Or MAGA, right-wingers, fascists. We are the best because daddy says so. Okay? This blind loyalty to harmful false beliefs that prevent our development individually and as a species into understanding. Not only that, it blinds us, we can't see, it blinds us from any evidence and reason that allow that movement into understanding. That's a class of belief that's the cause of our fundamental human problems. That's the pathologos. The patho means sick. The sick or false belief or patho, P-A-T-H-O, pathologos. Notice, what we are learning in our development into understanding is the actual logos through the dialectic. So the pathologos is the sick version of it, or the distortion. So, this can all be summarized into one art. One activity that all human beings are here to learn and master. You can only do it here because you have to do it step by step in many reflections and talks with your friends, in many reading groups, until we master it. It's a learning. So it's what we're here for. It's to learn how to gain an understanding, the dialectic and logos, of what's true in philosophy. How to gain an understanding, dialectic and logos, of what's false, remove the pathologos. How to get messages from our guide through our dreams. You have to apply the same understanding, the same dialectic and logos to dreams. And fourth, share it. Mythology. Make stories about it. Because as we're saying, mythology, this is hard to explain and very challenging because of our deeply loyal beliefs, our blocks over here. So if we can make good anime or good stories or good content that shares an understanding of these four things, what's true. So this is all under one heading, philo or philodianoia, the love of understanding. Applied to what's true is philosophy, true philosophy. Applied to removing what's false is philosophical midwifery, a term that Socrates coined. This is what actual psychotherapy is, or should be. This is the model. This is what we need to do so we can actually
imagine people changing their positions and improving for the better.
Change our own positions and improve for the better. The love of understanding, the dialectic applied to dreams is both. It's the guide for both. It's dream analysis. And then finally, sharing it. That's mythology. Make some myths. Tell some stories about Iron Man going through this process. Now, a fantastic example is Achilles in the Iliad, a myth that Homer made showing Achilles as the worst possible person going through these stages to become the best possible person. So even the worst can turn themselves around. That's mythology. So this can all be unified in a single art, the love of understanding. So we can recognize that human development, the movement from caveman times, barbarism, us versus them, let's kill all the Jews, let's kill all the Palestinians, let's kill all the Christians, let's kill all the left-wingers, let's kill all the you fucking name it, let's keep everyone in poverty, let's murder the children, let's starve the children, let's... all this stupid shit that we do to each other and to ourselves, the way we undermine our own self-value, the way we sabotage our own goals, the way we beat ourselves up, the way we project our own problems onto others and then get mad at them. So individually, collectively, and as a species, our issue is, our goal is, our task is to move from the cognitive function of beliefs, believing someone else, especially pathologos beliefs, the worst kind, into the next level of cognitive development as an animal evolves. We're animals. That's into the use of language. So we have evolved past the other animals because we have language now. That's language, or the logos, if you fancy. And the ability to apply that language or logos to reflect on ourselves. So self-reflection. These are the two qualities we have evolved into, self-reflection, which is ousia. Remember ousia? Ousia, most purely experienced, is wisdom, knowing yourself completely, eternally, everything all at once, that kind of experience, beauty itself, justice itself. That's ousia. So our level of development right now at this part of history is the movement from beliefs through language or logos and ousia or self-reflection into understanding. And you might... Okay, by the way, not just understanding the physical world, understanding how many tomatoes there are in China. No. Understanding specifically the causes of ourselves, the causes of reality, the causes and principles. So the causes, the principles, and the preconditions or the conditions for self, for mind, for reality, for problems, for evolution, for learning, all of this stuff. The causes, the conditions, and let's put conditions next to causes because they fit together nicely. A love of understanding causes, conditions, and principles. So you might, or if you're the sort of person interested in this, you probably have your own favorite YouTube videos or Twitch streamers or figures that you look up to, principles, or whose content you enjoy, whose mythology you enjoy, principles. And if you reflect on them, you might ask yourself, hang on a second, are these people the sorts of people who are not just saying, oh, your problems are because of the blacks or women, or they're probably not incel like right-wingers who are trying to lie to you and manipulate you to act against your own interest. Hey, just believe Trump. Hey, just believe Andrew Tate. All that fucking shit. No, these are probably people who are actually reflecting on the actual causes of problems. Like wealth inequality. Why do some people get everything and get to have all of the nice meals for lunch, and everyone else has to eat noodles for lunch? Why can't we all get to eat nice food? Why is it that these, and by the way, they seem to be assholes. Why does the worst people get to enjoy life while enslaving the rest of us? That seems to be the cause of suffering and crime, because you have to do crimes if they're having all this stuff. So they probably say, hey, by the way, that's the actual causes. It isn't women, stop being sexist. It isn't the brown people, stop being racist. Because the people who are preying into that are manipulating you so they can scam you, get you to hate your fellow man while they take all the stuff. So they're looking at causes, these people that you probably already enjoy. But they also look at the conditions. What are the conditions for those causes? What has to exist for those causes to come to be? Capitalism. Now, ultimately, it's a lack of philodianoia. We do not demand a true understanding of what actually is our good. We do not demand a true mastery of how to remove problems. We do not demand every leader do dream analysis every single day. And we do not demand our cultural myths reflect those things. So we are ignorant of those things, so the pathologos is ruling. Our world is the playing out of the implications of being ruled by our pathologos, which is why everything is so fucking terrible. We are being told in our experience of being alive, this is so important that look at all of the terrible, terrible shit that happens to individuals and to species if they do not do their fucking job and learn this. The pathologos will rule you, and the worst things will happen every single day until you wake up and realize you're here to learn this. Philodianoia. And the best people out there are making way into realizing that. They are at the cusp of the movement from loving of learning, because they're looking at the causes, conditions, and principles for how to help people solve problems and create a better world in the physical world. That is the gateway to philosophy, to this art, philodianoia. Because there's those causes that they are discovering exist here. The principles exist here. The preconditions exist here and even beyond. There's a level beyond philosophy, by the way. So you might already be attracted to this. What we are doing is putting a name to it and pushing it further to realize that this is our purpose. This is the meaning of life, or our purpose in life, to discover meaning through this. So, what are we here to do? Move through beliefs, from beliefs, let go of beliefs, the old barbaric way of being, into understanding, to understand ultimately the nature of reality. Where are we? Or mind? What is the nature of mind itself? How far can mind go? What is this mind? Do you have a mind? Do you want to know what it is? Do you want to know how far it can reach? And by the way, what are you? What is it that has mind? What is it that experiences reality? What is this whole thing about? That's the ultimate goal of knowing the self. Our goal, therefore, is to make this movement in the love of understanding to know the self. So that's a summary of our channel and what we do here. We read philosophy, we do midwifery, we practice dream analysis, and we also encourage people to share their content, make art that reflects this. So, I hope you enjoy it. Whether you're interested in removing your problems and becoming free and happy, whether you're interested in knowing the meaning of life or yourself or how it makes sense of your highest experiences in philosophy, or whether you're curious about waking up to a guide that you have. What's the meaning of my dreams? Why do I dream? Why do I get nightmares sometimes? Why is it that sometimes I have to improve or evolve as a being to solve the problems that I experience in my dreams over and over? Sometimes it takes a long time. But if I grow, if I develop courage, if I develop a new way of being, I'm able to somehow overcome those problems in dreams. What's that about? Any of those questions can begin your journey in the true archetype of the hero's journey. The hero's, the paradigm or the model of the hero's journey, Philodyne Way.
You're a wizard, Harry.
You're a wizard, Harry. And we're looking for people to share in that adventure with us.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
So, that's a bit of an introduction and overview. Of course, any questions, feel free to shoot them out. I'm going to take off my jumper. Jumper is off. So, we're at an interesting point in history because, we are facing a counterattack from Socrates. Who knew all this stuff? We get the term philosophical midwifery from Socrates. We learn about the dialectic from Socrates. We learn how to use the dialectic to reach truth from the dialogues of Socrates. Socrates talked about dream analysis. But before he was able to share or write his mythology, share all his work, we killed him. So we lost it all. Well, we lost dream analysis, midwifery, and his mythology. We got some mythology and some philosophy from Plato, his student. But Plato was in his 20s when his teacher was murdered by us. So a lot of problems happened because of that. But we are at a point of history where we can turn it around. And what I'm trying to do is share that. I don't know how. I haven't been terribly successful in sharing this message so far. But who knows? Maybe there are one or two people out there who have the courage and the character and the truth-seeking desire within their soul that can pick up the game and share it with the world, benefit themselves as well, most importantly benefit themselves, but also share it with the world in a way that I haven't been able to so far. Who knows what tomorrow will bring. So, we are... Whoa, that's... not the thing. Let's move it into the right place. There we go. So we are about to jump into some dialogue summaries, or two specific examples of somebody going through a philosophical midwifery process. But before we jump into that, let's talk about a couple of things we've been doing on the channel recently. Here, these causes. So recently we did a video where we tried to go viral unsuccessfully, taking down a very, very popular streamer and Twitch streamer and content creator, Hassan Piker, who was on the Majority Report.
Wow!
Freaks. I'm too pure. You've been a bad little girl and you're getting a vigorous spanking right now?
The voice that tells us that we all need a spanking is Emma from the Majority Report. So, he was on that recently, and he tried to he created a diagnosis of the difficulties that we are facing, a way of being of us versus them kind of thinking, and he offered a remedy, a solution. So we often use the doctor's art as a analogy for philodianoia, because philodianoia, love of understanding, applies to benefiting not the physical body but the soul. It does benefit the physical body because the body is connected to the mind, or is a reflection of the state of our mind, but it's not medicine. So we talk about diagnosing the illness of the soul and offering a prescription or remedy to help people get a healthy soul, and going from a healthy soul to the excellence of the soul. So after you've fixed your broken arm, you go to the gym, or you do personal training, or you pick up a sport to go from health to excellence. So that's the movement from midwifery to philosophy within the soul. And so we made a little diagram to understand Hassan's level of thinking, understand what he was seeing in his diagnosis. What is this us versus them thing? And to examine whether or not his solution could work and why it can't work. And is it on the board? Probably somewhere. All right, let's just do it again. So as we just described in the opening, in the introduction, all four aspects of philodianoia all use the dialectic. So to understand something, you have to use the dialectic to start by defining your term, the subject in relation to itself. Then how does that relate to others, self to others, demonstration, how does it function? And how does that functioning play out in other divisions? And then as a result of all that, can you synthesize into a single idea and take that back to your definition, synthesis and analysis, come to a conclusion? That's the dialectic. And we've been saying that the dialectic is the structure of the logos and the paradigm for the intelligibility or the knowability and understandability of reality. Meaning, if we want to understand all of the different kinds of people that there are, all of the different kinds of coffee, all the different ways of understanding, whether you are understanding yourself or the world or what's good or how to live in the world, and all of the different kinds of states of mind or feeling states that come along with it. For example, if you are a nihilist and your way of thinking or understanding is that nothing is real, everything is an illusion, there's not even physical things, we're all just nothing isn't anything, you would have a state of mind of being sad and being depressed and lonely. So there's an accompanying state of mind to every level of understanding. And if we were to not just pick a favorite, I like Buddhism the best, I like Taoism the best, I like Hinduism the best, I like Protestantism the best, I like Catholicism the best, etc., etc. That's baby brain, that's that loyalty, that's the caveman, barbaric way of thinking. We don't want to do that. We want to understand all of them. The understanding not only involves recognizing the parts, but arranging them hierarchically. What's better? Having a body with 2 legs is better than having a body with 1 leg. Hierarchically arranging the possibilities. So what? Well, so if the structure of the logos is the dialectic, then wouldn't it follow that the most significant application of the dialectic is to understand all possible ways of thinking and feeling states? We're not computers, so we also have feelings. Now, what's really interesting is we already have that. That's called the dialogue of Parmenides. When Socrates was a young lad, a wee young lad, him and his mates decided to track down this Socrates guy. There was a big festival, the biggest festival of the year was coming up, their version of the Olympics. And there was a guy named Zeno, which sounds like a space alien. But Zeno was the student of a guy named Parmenides. And Socrates and his buddies came across some essays that Zeno had written. And they wanted to ask him some questions. They wanted to grill him because Socrates wasn't buying it. He wasn't really understanding. He was confused. He had some questions. But in that conversation, he ended up talking instead to Zeno's teacher, Parmenides. And Parmenides says, "Hey, lad, this is your issue. You're young. First of all, that's your first problem. You're young. But I see you have a natural aptitude for the logos. But your issue is you're trying to understand this realm of being that we talk about, using a language or a way of thinking based on the physical world. Based on the physical world. It's a whole different thing, my son," says Socrates. So what? So the only way of moving from the physical world of opinions and ignorance into the realm of being where you can gain true understanding and wisdom, there's only one way. It's what Zeno was practicing in those essays that you were reading with your buddies. What's the way? The dialectic. The method of philodianoia, love of understanding. So Socrates' earliest teacher said, hey, buddy, you best learn the dialectic. Otherwise, you'll never reach truth. Truth about specific things like beauty and justice and the nature of reality and self. But also specific truths. Well, truths about specific things like what's the true nature of beauty, what's the true nature of justice. That's the specific truths, but you will also not reach truth itself. So we can ask the same kind of question. If there is a truth about justice, self-justice, if self is like an honorific, like Mr. Smith. So when we talk about beauty, not in the physical world, but in the realm of being, we say Mr. Beauty or self-beauty. So not only will you not reach the truth about self-beauty and self-justice, specific true things, but you won't even reach, hey, that same question. If there are many beautiful things, we can wake up to philosophy and ask what's beauty itself. But if there is a truth about beauty and a truth about self-justice and a truth about self-goodness, what is the higher principle and cause called truth itself? That is the cause of all of the true things in being, in philosophy. So you won't reach this level, and you won't reach beyond it to the next level, philophronesis, unless you apply yourself to learning and practicing and mastering the dialectic. And Socrates says, okay, old man. Can you give me an example of the dialectic? Sounds complicated. But Socrates was a clever boy. He didn't say, give me an example of the dialectic applied to beauty or justice. That would have taken him to this realm of being. Whoops. Here. Let's make it yellow. Make it yellow because it's often called the brilliant light of pure being. So we'll make it yellow. That means we have to make these words also yellow. And let's make the mundane world, the boring, mundane, average world, let's make that white. So he didn't say, hey, give me an example of the dialectic about any of the aspects or eidos, mistranslated in schools currently as forms. They're not forms. That's a language applied to the physical world. That's the exact problem Socrates had. In other words, the teachers who claim to be philosophers in our current age are suffering from the exact same problem that Socrates had, which tells you they're not reading the Parmenides. So we could make a diagnosis of philosophy teachers. You have this problem. It's Socrates' problem. You know what you need to do? Read the Balboa translation of Parmenides. Or like and subscribe to this channel and read along with us, because we read the introduction and the first hypothesis already. We will go back to the Parmenides at some stage. So, Socrates said, hey, he could have said, give me an example of the dialectic about any of these true things in being. But Socrates said, hey, by the way, I don't want an example of the dialectic on that. I want an example of the dialectic of this realm, beyond being, the true self, or the one self. Give me an example of a dialectic on yourself, Parmenides. What is yourself? So, he gives it. He gives it. That's the first hypothesis. The understanding and state of mind of Parmenides' self is the first hypothesis. The one self. But then he's communicating this not as a lecture, but in a dialectic. And the person he's talking to said, I don't think that's a likely understanding and state of mind of the self, state of being of the self. Even that, because it's beyond being. So that same problem, when we talk about the state of mind of that which is beyond being, or the state of being, we have to use a different special kind of language. That's one of the big puzzles. Anyway. Young Aristotle says, I don't think that's likely. Now, he could have done midwifery and discovered what specific false belief Aristotle had and addressed that. But of course, midwifery takes a long time. And this is just one dialogue. Instead, he goes, you know what I'm going to do instead? I am going to give an account of every other possible likely, that could be likely, every other possibility other than the first hypothesis. Other than the ultimate nature of self and what is the self that you can only describe with a description of a pure one. Does a pure one have qualities? Does a pure one have shape? For it to have shape, it would have to have some sort of boundary, right? That's two things. Was it in something? Well, you got to have something that it's in. So to have shape, you have like some sort of boundary that's made up of either a straight line or a curved line. And a straight line has ends in the middle. That's more than one thing. Does it have, is it in anything? Well, then you've got to have two things, something that it's in. Even if it's self-contained, it has to be something that's contained within itself. Can it be the same as anything else? Well, that's two things. That's out. Can it be different from... No, that's again different. What are you different from? That's a comparison between two things. Can it have parts? Well, hang on a second. Parts is a manyness, so no parts. Can it be a whole? Well, it doesn't... When we say whole, don't we mean that which has all of its parts together as a whole? So it can't have parts, can't have a manyness. So that is a dialectic exploration of what exactly a pure one is, because that he then says, and by the way, that's the self. That's my hypothesis of the self, from myself, of myself. And if you don't think that's likely, let's explore all other possible ways of understanding the self or reality. What's fascinating is he uses the dialectic to do so. The second hypothesis, the third hypothesis, the fourth hypothesis, and the fifth. The same dialectic, isn't that neat? The same dialectic, we're learning how to read philosophy, how to remove our problems in midwifery, how to understand our dreams, and how to make good movies in mythology. The same dialectic. Same dialectic, we have conversations that are meaningful and helpful.
Imagine people changing their positions and improving for the better.
Instead of stupid debate. Dialectic. The same thing we're learning again and 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 again is also what we apply to gain a complete understanding of all possible ways of thinking and being. But of course, when you do a dialectic on something, you have two categories. I want to know what beauty is if it exists. If it exists in being eternally. But we also have to explore what happens if it doesn't exist. What if beauty is just a physical thing? What if beauty is just a chemical squirting in our brain? What if beauty is just a marketing ploy to sell more Coca-Cola? What if it doesn't exist? What if there is no such thing as being? Doesn't exist. You have to do a dialectic. Give a definition of if it doesn't exist. How does it function if it doesn't exist? So we have the sixth. Maybe we should go a different color. I think it is a different color. Maybe use this color. The sixth. No, let's make this one that color. Make it this color. And make the rejection or the denial the dirtier color. Light. The sixth, the seventh, the eighth, and the ninth, giving us the full set of the 9 hypotheses of Parmenides. Hooray! And if we recognize that, we can understand why they call the Parmenides the greatest book never read. Why? Well, if this completely encapsulates all possible ways of thinking and being for an individual, for a collective, and for our species, then, and it predates something like Christianity, responsible for the Dark Ages and the Crusades, and Trump is using the evangelistic Christians to take away healthcare and murder children who look different from their clan identity and steal more money and genocide hundreds of thousands of Palestinian children. Trump's not a Christian himself, but he uses that way of thinking to manipulate people to get support for his disgusting injustice, which is itself his pathologos. So we would need to, if we were a mature species, we would say, oh, there's a member of our pack who is very, very sick and is killing everyone in our species, in our wolf pack. We wouldn't allow that. Animals would do this. There's a sickness, there's a cancer. We'd need to single him out, move him off to the side, not kill him, but go through philosophical midwifery to understand the causes, the conditions, and the principles for him having this sickness that is killing our own. For some reason, there's a group of people, the Christians, who are okay with killing people who are different from them. Now, because that's a principle that doesn't just apply to Christians, all people within that kind of way of being, within that hypothesis. What does that mean? That means we could have avoided all that terrible, terrible shit if we read the book. That's why they call it the greatest book never read. Just like if you go through philosophical midwifery, you don't have to play out your problems anymore in your everyday world. Just like if you solve the problem that's coming up in your dreams, you don't have to have the same nightmare over and over. In other words, it only plays out through time, thumbs up, because you haven't understood it through language and reflection. Logos and ousia. Dialogue, dialectic. Right? Makes sense? If you understand why your car keeps breaking down because you haven't put petrol in it, you don't have to keep getting stranded. You realize, oh, the cause was no petrol. I just got to put petrol in it. This is understanding. You don't have to suffer the stupid repeating problems if you understand it. That's the significance of moving from belief-based thinking, where there is no change, clan loyalty. I am a Protestant, I am a Jehovah's Witness. It's not a belief, it's I am. It's an identity. It's a way of thinking about the self that doesn't allow for change and growth. That's the barbaric, stupid way of being. And if any of this, if you're getting triggered, I don't mean your group, I mean all the other groups. Because if there are 5,000 different religions out there, then you will have to accept that at least 4,999 are wrong if your one is the right one. So whenever you get triggered, I don't mean yours, I mean those other 4,999. Equally, if there are 8 billion different people who have 8 billion different pathologos from, 4 billion different families, I don't mean your particular family, your parents, your way of being, if you're getting triggered. I mean the other 7,999,999,999. Because they're all wrong if yours is right. Okay? Just if you're getting triggered. See how absurd it is to be a caveman? To be stuck at the level of belief? See the significance and the benefit of understanding. By the way, all 8 billion people can understand. No one has to be murdered or put in prison or made to feel bad or beaten up. Almost as if this is the thing that can unite our entire species, making it the definition of evolution. We don't evolve by making bigger nuclear weapons and rockets because they can be used to destroy our whole planet. We evolve through upgrading the way in which we perceive, state of mind, and think, understanding. Meaning, these 9 hypotheses also give us the map or paradigm for evolution. And as we're saying, if this predates Christianity, we didn't have to play it out in history to all of the fucking terrible, terrible, terrible shit that has happened. Crusades, the alignment with the Nazis and the Third Reich, that whole thing. The Dark Ages. The horrible torture of women for hundreds and thousands of years. The continual justification for oppression of people all around the world under Trump. We could have avoided all that. Because Christianity would just be, if these are the possibilities, one of these, meaning if we read the book, we would recognize the part it was in, the whole that it's a part of, its limitations, the causes and conditions for getting into it, the causes, conditions, and principles for what's needed to go to the next level or evolve or level up. The possible states of mind or what enlightenment experiences you can have and can't have within that tradition. we would understand it. So if someone would come along, hey, I'm interested in inventing this new thing called Christianity. Oh, that's level 4, by the way. We know that we've already had level 4 type thinkings before. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a dialectic so you can move from the 4th to the 3rd. So our whole species doesn't suffer your sickness. The greatest book never read.
That's where you live, in the weirdo pool. You're going around doing that in the weirdo pool. That's you.
And I'm starting to understand. Unbelievable sluts these days.
What feminists want is to specifically ruin your life. I've been a bad little girl.
Okay. Isn't that neat? Isn't that neat? I think it's neat. Oh, and by the way, it's worth repeating and reminding ourselves of. And if there is one or two people out there in the internet that watches this content that I'm making and it sticks, or not even, doesn't have to stick, you just have to get curious about it. Because this is a relationship. This is a lifelong process. You are here for however long you're here. We do this every day if I can. Again, it's difficult under the conditions of capitalism where I have to pay greedy landlord and so on, but I do my best. So the greatest book never read, allowing us to get in ahead of all of the terrible problems that came up with this religion or this cult or this figure, this Trump guy or this Putin or this Hitler or this Scientology or this whatever the fuck. See? Isn't that neat? And if there is one or two people out there, then maybe you'll have greater success in sharing this significant recognition or understanding with people better than I'm able to do, at least currently. So what? So, if we can apply the same dialectic to what's most significant, it's, by the way, we apply it to philosophy, midwifery, dream analysis, and mythology. It's the model for music as well. The analogical relationships between these terms reflect the relationships in music, the perfect fifth, the perfect fourth, and the octave. Whatever study you're learning, you are seeing the intelligibility of reality reflected in that study, in geometry, in mathematics. Mathematics is a great example. Euclid's elements of geometry. Every proposition starts with a definition of the terms, a specific demonstration of that, definition, to construct an equilateral triangle on a given finite straight line. Demonstration. What specific demonstration can you demonstrate this ability to construct an equilateral triangle on this specific that we can see? We see according to functioning. I'll give you AB. Can you make an equilateral triangle like this? Then division. You have to divide it up into the parts using the axioms, the principles, using the axioms, the principles, or the postulates that are themselves like things you can do. You can draw a straight line, you can draw a circle, which provide the preconditions for you to be able to do this, and then do with this as the center, A as the center. I shouldn't be looking at the board. To make a circle here, using these preconditions of the principles and causes, and then another circle with center of B, and then where they intersect you can draw a line, go. See? So, that's the division stage. And then you have to synthesize that, showing that it is follows those principles. These are the things that I used, and therefore come to a conclusion. I'll go back to the start and say analysis. Therefore, on a given straight line AB, I was able to construct an equilateral triangle ACB. That's the first one. And then from that, all of geometry is unfolding. So, it's an example of a complete intellectual system of understanding that we can share in as animals who have evolved language and reflection. It's neat. And it's a lot of fun. It's super fun and awesome and interesting, but it's also a practice of the dialectic. And at the end of each proposition, each activity, each exercise, you gain a little insight, which is mini enlightenment. It's a mini leveling up. Shit, I was able to see this thing I couldn't see, how to make an equilateral triangle, by applying the dialectic, just like in philosophy, you apply the dialectic to self-beauty so that you can see it, hopefully awaken to it, and experience it. If there's a party, don't you want to go? If there is the perfection of beauty itself, knowing yourself as mind itself, as the essence of beauty, the nature of beauty itself, don't you want to experience it? Do you want to hear some guy in a big hat tell you, oh, there's a heaven and it's for later when you die, maybe if you give me your money and you kill those other people, the Browns? How about, fuck you, how about let's go to the party? Let's all go to the party and have a good time. Even the mice that sound like that. Again, it's just rational. That is a mini dialectic that would show you maybe my blind loyalty to belief and whatever clan identity, getting to go to the picnics, getting to feel like a big strong Noah when I go out in the streets and say, hey, accept Jesus, you suck, and I'm better because I believe in Jeebus. You believe in Jeebus. I can solve all your problems. I'm like a doctor. Never had to go to medical school, never had to practice, never had to show an understanding of the model, never had to have a state of mind, a vision of the model of a healthy soul, never had to go through the work of developing an understanding, never had to practice it in experience to actually benefit anyone. I didn't have to do any of that fucking shit. I'm an idiot. All I have to do is say, I believe in Jesus and I'm better than all of you and I can help you. I'm like a doctor of your soul. That arrogance, or that, not arrogance, that sense of false knowingness. That's what Trump offers them. Hey, all you got to do is give me all your money and not have healthcare and kill women in childbirth and just suffer and die and go do wars overseas for Israel and all that. And I will let you pretend that you're a doctor of reality. You're a guru because you believe in Jeebus. That's the carrot that he offers people. Now, realizing that there is actually a level of reality where you can actually know beauty itself. That's better than the physical world. And playing this sick, disgusting game of imitating knowers who are themselves sick, disgusting people is fucked up and doesn't get you to the party. Realizing that for yourself, however you come to realize it, allows you to see the significance of going from belief to understanding. Yes, there is a bit more work, but you feel better, you can function better, you can actually help people, your relationships are better, and you get to go to the party. You get to experience yourself eternally. You get to experience bliss and the perfection of beauty. You don't just hear about lies from some fucking priest or preacher or imam or rabbi or whatever Scientologists have. See? Doesn't it make sense? Doesn't it seem obvious when you say it in words? From belief to understanding. So, those are the stakes. That's the motivation we need to activate our spirit and our will to seek truth and go to the party and have a good time and stop murdering people and stop having billionaires doing all their disgusting things while we all suffer. Completely stupid. But also within our souls. We can stop beating ourselves up. We can stop limiting ourselves to the lower cognitive functions. We can awaken our own understanding. We all have it. It's there. Awaken our own usia. That's also there. It just lies dormant. It's asleep. That's why we call this awakening philosophy. And then wondering about what's even beyond that. What's the virtue that all these other virtues are traded in for? What's the highest virtue behind all of it? This is the game of understanding. This is why we love understanding. That's why it's called philo or philodianoia, the love of understanding. All right, let's keep going. So given that we can apply the dialectic, or it's already been applied in the greatest book never read, to the different stages of cognitive functions, we were able to recognize what level Hassan was at. We were able to recognize what sort of person he was identifying as the problem in the interview with Emma.
I've been a bad little girl.
Who's apparently been a bad girl.
I'm too pure.
But she's pure.
Disgusting. I'm so disgusted.
And the Oracle finds her disgusting. And all the while...
Well, you're doing your best. Okay, so sorry, Ben. Go ahead. What were you saying?
R.M. Brown thinks that they're doing their best. Okay. Silly nonsense. So what? Right, so we're able to identify... well, we can all do it. We can all do it. Why are we talking about that today? Well, in identifying these things, it was handy to give a little symbol for each of them. But today, I want to do two things. I want to relate this, the highest application of the dialectic we've been mastering in our philodianoia, our love of understanding. I want to apply this to what we did yesterday with the causes, but also I want to introduce a new idea, the mysterious cube. The cube. And then you have the mysterious cube. I'm gonna draw a cube better. Cube. Maybe some of you have heard about the cube. The mysterious cube. The amazing cube. You've heard of a Rubik's cube, but a Parmenidean hypothesis cube? What the heck? What the heck? What the heck?
That's weird that you think that.
It's weird that we think that there is a cube. It looks like this. I mean, I've heard of a cube of sugar, But a Parmenidean cube? What the heck? There we go. So this way. I mean, I've heard of the movie The Cube, but a Parmenidean cube? What the heck? Hey, we're back. And we dance, and we dance, and we dance. Okay. Alright. What's the cube? I've heard of... Well, no, I haven't actually heard of that many other cubes, have I? I've already done Rubik's Cube. Cube with sugar. The movie The Cube. I haven't really heard of any other cubes. I can't do that joke again. Alright, so let's do our pictures again. Helps us. Don't know. Move the cube over to the side for now. So our pictures. We could draw a picture for the oneself, but maybe we could be clever and not give it a picture because it's beyond manyness and beyond physical descriptions. So that level, it's a different sort of a game up there. It requires a different sort of language, just as Socrates needed a different sort of a language to understand the questions of being that he was struggling with in Zeno's essays. Which is why Parmenides says, listen, son, all right there, my son, you need to learn some dialectic. Get some dialectic in your ass, or I'll give you a bunch of knucks. Many people don't know this, but Parmenides actually sounded a lot like Jason Statham. All right, my son, give me 50 quid, or I'll give you a bunch of knucks. And do the dialectic, my son. All right? Or I'll have ya. See? That's what he said. It was exactly like that. And we know this because archaeologists have dug up his bones and they've got the remains of his windpipe and they pushed air through it. I don't know if you've seen those YouTube videos where they try and recreate what an ancient pharaoh sounded like by doing this to mummy remains. And they're like, wah, 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 and they sound really crazy. This is what an ancient pharaoh sounded like. We dug up his remains from a mummified corpse, and we recreated it by passing air through it. And he sounded like this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I don't know if that's real, but it sounds, I think it's just made up nonsense. But I love stuff like that. I love genuine nonsense, like people who are trying their best to understand, even if they're, I don't know, even if it's a bit silly or they, like that sort of content. Like people like who believe in ghosts and stuff. I find that funny because it doesn't harm anyone and they're doing their best to understand. I think that's great. It's the people who are not curious and trying to understand but are certain and are trying to block other people from understanding by saying, just believe, just toe the line, just have faith, don't understand, don't think. Be worried about paying your rent. That blocking of understanding is terrible. It's okay to be unaware, but don't be certain in your unawareness. Like those guys on the street saying, you're going to go to hell, you're going to go to hell. Well, clearly you're struggling, but anyway.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
I don't know if pharaohs actually sounded like that, but it's funny to see. So, back to the hypotheses. The second hypothesis, we can give the symbol, this one, because it's the highest level of enlightenment for the Taoists, and they have this symbol. That's their highest level of understanding and the highest possible state of mind within their tradition. The third hypothesis, what did we use last time for the third? This is represented by, there are traditions. There is a tradition and there's a level of understanding and a level of thinking, but collectively you can have a tradition associated with it. So you can create a symbol based on historical cultures or historical traditions, or you could just have a symbol that represents the thing itself. But when we did our super viral video where we owned Hassan Piker, the crazy mad leftist, with philosophy, we did our own symbols. And I think I need to change boards because this is getting a bit big. So many notes. So let me see if I can find it. It's a big stream. It was like 6.5 hours. Right. But it was worth it because we got to review everything we've accomplished up in the channel up until now. Worth the review. Can't seem to find it. Okay, let's make up some new symbols then. Here we go. Oh, right, the film strip. Okay. Here we go. These are the symbols from last time, the film strip. Okay, let's go back. The film strip. So, the functioning of this level of being itself, or Usia, as we were describing it earlier, is through the gap. So, this is the level of Logos and Usia we need to awaken to actually become a rational species. This is why we do, dream analysis, because the functioning of this is providence and intelligence. Ever realize why the most intelligent people, the people who are genuinely curious about understanding, reflecting on causes and principles, they are the people with empathy, they are the people who are the nicest people, most loving people, the most beautiful looking, well, not just looking, but glowing people, because intelligence is connected with providence. Ever wondered why the most ignorant people are the most racist, are the most sexist, are the ones wanting to kill all the others? It's because intelligence, or logos, and care, or providence, are connected. Logos and providence. So we can draw that with the film strip, because a film strip also has moments, like we have moments in time, but for there to be change in our physical world, there has to be a gap. And that gap can be experienced as the being as the second hypothesis in the gap. This is the third hypothesis. Whoops. So you can have traditions like Kashmir Shivism, I think it's called, and this is their highest level of enlightenment. As far as they go. The fourth, of course, is group think, which is where we are as a society. So we have these guys and these guys, the Abrahamic religions. I think that's how you draw it. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. And then this one. So this is people bound by belief. No logos, no usia. Why they're trying to kill everybody and are trying to stop you from understanding. Don't ask what God did before he created the world, because you'll go to hell. Child abuse. For you to, the word religion means to be bound by a saving belief. So you have to teach children, if you don't sacrifice yourself, sacrifice your evolution, sacrifice your maturity, sacrifice your understanding and self-goals, then this bad thing that we're going to make up to scare you with will happen. You will go to hell. There's no mention of hell in the Bible. Just a bunch of bullshit used to torment children. Easy to see if you recognize that it's that Christian people happen to be born into Christian families. I think that's the symbol for that. In other words, you don't learn it through understanding, you're just imitating your parents. Muslim families have Muslim children, Jewish families have Jewish children. If of course, if they don't wake up to their own critical thinking and understanding. So that kind of threat or fear is child abuse. Not yours. Your parents were loving and caring when they created this false threat and said you need a saving belief and to sacrifice your own development to be a blind servant to me, the king priest of the house. That was actually love. But every other family, you can recognize that as child abuse. If you realize that part of being mature is not to play favorites and be a little baby and say, but not my house, then I'm joking. But if you actually are butthurt, I'm serious. I don't mean yours, I mean everyone else's, the 7,999,000,000 other people, right? Now, for the fifth hypothesis, we said no ghosts. We had the Ghostbusters symbol. But actually, see, this whole category does think that there is a divine. You can experience it directly in being, in the second hypothesis. You can experience it in the gap, more transitorially, or having one foot in everyday world and in the gap. So like sometimes people talk about being in a flow state. You can get the providence and logos through dream analysis, the gap between your waking life. Now, this line under here indicates where there is no logos. So it's a line of symmetry. So the reflection of the second, not actual pure unity, but a kind of distorted unity by being a part of a group. Right? Again, no logos. No logos below this line. That's why we are barbarians and ignorant and suffering, and why
no one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems.
This is why, because we're below this line. Now, the reflection of this, where there is a connection between the providential intelligence divine, well, the divine and us through providence and logos, care and intelligence, these guys think, well, yeah, there is something beyond my individual physical identity, but no connection to me. So it's better to have the Ghostbusters ghost on this side. And a sad person on this side. His hands up in the air. No, why me? That's a better symbol. That's a strict dualism. There's no connection. Now, it's fun to have it written in this way because first of all you get to see the dialectic, which is what we need for understanding. You can see how 1, 2, 3, 4, like the 4 stages of the dialectic. And that allows you to make connections to gain insight. For instance, you could say, well, how does that first one represent the first category? How does the second hypothesis reflect the first category of the dialectic? Definition, the subject itself. Well, if this is if you're rejecting the real hypothesis, Parmenides' hypothesis of the first hypothesis, the one self, then this is a level of reality or a reflection into different dimensions. Whether it exists on this side and whether it doesn't exist on this side. So if it does exist, how would you define pure existence? Definition, self itself. Self, how you talk about it, not in relation to others, but in relation to itself. Definition. A direct experience of existence itself. That's the brilliant light of being. That's the second hypothesis. How does that brilliant light of being demonstrate or function itself to others? That's the gap. It's the third. Okay, so see how we can apply it, so on and so on, to gain further insight into these things. I'm going to stop there so you can play yourself. It's fun. It allows you to remember these hypotheses and understand them and so on. But also realizing that this logos line here is also a line of symmetry. So you can say, how do I understand what's really going on with these evangelists and these Christians and Muslims and Jews? They seem to be really powerful at our current age. They seem to be the ruling groups. What the heck are they doing? Here's a way of looking at it. Is it a reflection of the second? Now, when you look at a reflection of yourself in the mirror, all of the important qualities go. First of all, it's backwards, so it's distorted. You lift your right hand, your image reflected lifts its left. But also, your mirror reflection is flat. It's missing a whole dimension. Also, it misses the higher qualities, the most important things that you have. Your image reflection might look a little bit like you, again, flat and all that, and backwards. Does it have reasoning? Does it have will? Does it have intelligence? All of these important qualities are gone. So you can use that as an analogy to wonder about and gain insight into the nature of people in the fourth. Did they have intelligence? Nope. Blind faith, right? It's what religion means. To be bound by a absurd belief, a belief that cannot be proven by reason and evidence. You can't prove Mary was a virgin, or disproven. We know that dinosaurs existed. Not if you're in this church. So you have to sacrifice your intelligence, you have to sacrifice your reasoning, you have to sacrifice your will to be a blind servant to the priest or whoever. See how using this line of reflection will help gain you insight into different types of people out there? equally so, you could use that as a model to see how could this person here, who still thinks there is something beyond, but there's no connection to us. The divine doesn't care about us. We'd be like ants or specks of dust in a great cosmos. Therefore, can you use everything we've been learning about providence and logos, care and intelligence, everything we've been learning about the art of the dialectic, the art of philodianoia, everything we've been learning about how medicine can be an analogy to understand this art we're learning, can you use that mirror reflection idea to take everything you've been learning about the third in our channel to wonder about what somebody in the fifth might be? What would be the distorted reflection of that without all of its essential qualities? Thumbs up. Okay, you can wonder about that. It's a little gift I've given to you. Thank you to me.
Can't you just engage with anything in a way that's like meaningful ever? It's just boring, I think, is the problem. I'm just bored of it.
Okay. Well, hopefully this will be interesting and not boring. It's fun. You're doing something in the day, you've got nothing to do, wonder about this. What would the third be? What would the fifth be? Now we can also see there's another line of symmetry here. Let's move these over a bit. Where's my coffee? Cheers. Cheers for coffee. There we go. Now, we'll give it a different color. There. Because you can see that, hey, if this is the same dialectical structure, only what if it doesn't exist? What would you be left? What would you be defining itself? How would this function? How would the result of this functioning be on other groups or other others? And as a result, how does that relate back to the original principle? In other words, this line of symmetry in the middle shows for every one of these, again, necessary as an unfolding of the self into the creation, maybe so that we can climb back and gain a mastery of an art when we return. Maybe there's something significant about going through all these stages as a being. Yes, when you're in the fourth, you can do the worst possible fucking things. The pathologos is a group identity in the fourth. But maybe in going through all these states of being, we benefit in some way as a soul that might help our evolution beyond even this incarnation. Maybe. We can wonder about that, right? These are the questions. This is what makes it fun. Wonder about that stuff. Thumbs up. Okay, so for each of these kind of necessary in one way, reflections of the oneself into all the possible manifestations, you could deny them. You could have a person that says, I don't think there is anything like an enlightenment experience. That's poppycock and hodgewaddle. Those Taoists, they don't know what they're talking about. I know better. I don't care if they've been studying that experience for 1,000 years. For thousands of years. I don't care if there have been many experiences. Sometimes people on drugs, sometimes people in all sorts of different ways. Of this experience, I don't care. Near-death experiences, blah, 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 blah. I say no. I say phooey to that. Phooey, phooey, phooey. That's all poppycock and foo-foo and wee-wah. That's a take. People have that take. again, they have to reject a lot of things, and they have to have a Dunning-Kruger level of confidence in their own ignorance or lack of awareness of so many different things, including Socrates and including philosophy itself, considering we have like 1,000 years of study of this, that before, again, the Christians and Emperor Justinian banned philosophy, killed the philosophers, burnt down the libraries, prevented people from reading to say, hey, no books for you, no understanding for you, blind obedience or faith, otherwise we'll kill you. That was the beginning of the Dark Ages. But before that, 1,000 years of study at Plato's Academy. The first universities of the West was philosophy, which was specifically about this. This is the Greek or Hellenic tradition. You got to reject our golden age. You got to reject the greatest books ever written, the Parmenides, the Republic. The greatest studies on the greatest book, Proclus. To confidently assert there is nothing beyond the physical world. We're all just physical beings with physical chemicals and blah, 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 blah. You got to reject a lot of shit. Or just not have been exposed to it. Maybe no one in your life has been interested in this. Maybe you haven't come across this channel before. And if you haven't, welcome. There's a big world out there, and I hope that you become curious about it. Or maybe you've had an acid trip or something, and you had a profound experience you want to make sense of. That's the second, or maybe the third. Don't know what it was for you, but maybe even the first if you're lucky. Ooh. Nevertheless, you can still have people who have either that lack of awareness or ignorance or denial or whatever it is, to deny the existence of the second. See that line of symmetry? This is what if it doesn't exist? So what would be a way of unifying all of the principles of reality that you study in philosophy, principles and causes, that explain what happens in the physical world and, beyond, but without there being a level of being? Balloons. Well, what do we call that? How about Marxism? Isn't there a way of explaining the forces of our physical world that they think is the most accurate way of explaining things? Seems to be. Seems to be rational. Socialism, well, how do we care for everyone together? Recognizes the dynamics of people who own all the shit, fucking over the people who don't. Marxism. And let's just share everything and care for each other like fucking real people and caring, compassionate people. Socialism. Then you have people who have their own isms that think they've figured it out. Maybe capitalism. Yes, everyone wins by the rich getting richer and murdering the poor. Somehow. The invisible hand will do it, even though the person who said that there was an invisible hand went on to say, no, that's not true. I was wrong. But of course, the people who are addicted to hurting people through hoarding wealth want to pretend that there is an invisible hand. Anyway, we can call that the isms. Isms. Draw a circle around that. The isms. So now we have a way of understanding people who are trying to make sense of the world through isms. The liars who say things like capitalism is real, and the good people who are saying, well, socialism is better. Of course it is. Yeah, they're right. Marxism better explains the forces in the physical. Yeah, that's right. It's not the ideal. It's not the cause of things. It's not the actual way of having everyone harmonized, but not necessarily bad. It's just not the most true and the most ideal and the most true to the model. Isms. Now, how can you make sense of people who are fervent Marxists and are willing to live their lives in that way. A denial of there being an eternal paradigm means they have to make do with this paradigm. See? You're getting an understanding of the sixth hypothesis, the denial of the second. Hey, by the way, we had this reflection, the distorted reflection of the third. So, two ideas, like let's say the whole and the part. The Parmenides goes through this by saying, look, every principle that we relate to through language essentially comes in pairs at the highest levels. Okay, that's not true, because things like beauty or justice isn't a pair. But there is a class of selfers, things that apply to being, those eternal principles, that do come in pairs, whole and parts, limit and unlimit, in time and out of time. I'm not going to give you the full set, but there's a bunch of them. Now, it's the same terms. People here still think in terms of whole and parts. People here still also have whole and parts. People who are Christians still think that there are people the same as them and people different from them. And people who are racists or sexist or pathologos people still want to hurt people who are unlike them and give a big thumbs up to people who are like them. The Nazis and the MAGAs and stuff. In other words, it's still like and unlike, same and different, whole and parts. Only the difference is the relationship. There are only two things in reality, in the world, in the universe: things and relationships between things. The archetype of that, of course, is here are the two most basic things, self and other. Same and other, you could even say. And here are the kinds of relationships that you can have with those two primary terms. So the dialectic is the understandable paradigm of the two things in reality. Things and relationships. At its most pure essence. Isn't that neat? Isn't it fucking neat? It's so fucking neat. Isn't it amazing to realize that our world is understandable and the way it's understandable makes sense? Of course, if you were to understand everything, it would be the most primary. That would have to unfold into complication. Unfold into a manyness. Hey, if something's good, isn't it unified? If your car was falling apart, it's not the best. So wouldn't the most unified be the best? When you understand something, don't you take all the parts and you bring it together into a wholeness? So therefore, wouldn't it make sense that the paradigm is the most basic unity, and goodness reflects that too? Isn't that neat? And it just gives you four things. That's all you need. So it's not like you have to be super smart or anything. Only the academics get to play. No, fuck academics. Fuck your big words. If you can't explain it in simple words with simple symbols, you don't understand it, my friend. You have to use big words, you're a grifter. You're a Russell Brand or any of those fucking right-wing grifters who are lying to people for money on Rumble because they've been deplatformed from YouTube. If you have to use big words to hide your ignorance, you don't understand. Look how simple it is. Everyone can play. Literally, we're all here to play. Otherwise, you wouldn't be a human who has language and reflection. Doesn't every human benefit by understanding anything? The more you understand your car, don't you be able to use it better? The more you understand the video game you're playing, the more fun you have. The more you understand the sport, the more passionate you get, and the more nuance you can see, the more beauty you can perceive. So everyone benefits from understanding, and everyone gets fucked over from belief. It's not a picking a team. Isn't that neat? And it's simple. And it's symmetrical, so it's beautiful in that way. And to see the symmetry can allow you to get questions like, oh, I just learned something about the second hypothesis. Now I can learn something about how it functions in the third. So my insight for one, while I'm waiting in line for to pay for my groceries, I can wonder about how my new insight into the second can help me see something in the third. And how it functions. I can see something in how I can make sense of my crazy religious uncle, my religious parents or something. By seeing that whatever it is that they're into is that same insight I've just had in the second, but in a mirror, in a distorted backwards mirror, missing everything that's cool and important, like reason and will and life and energy and self-determination. My mirror reflection doesn't have that, but neither does my fundamentalist parents. They've never changed. They've never thought for themselves. They've never awoken their higher goals, self-determination. They're a fucking pawn for Trump or pawn for Joseph Smith or whatever cult they grew up in. Isn't that interesting? You can wonder about this and gain insight because it's so simple. And you can see how you can make sense of the socialists and the Marxists and the capitalists who are out there struggling to understand and make change by saying it's the denial of your insight that you've had. I just had this great insight. What happens if there's a person out there who denies the existence of this thing I've just had an insight about? Now you're gaining understanding of the isms. Isn't that neat? Come on, you gotta see it as neat. I see it as neat. And let me just check, 0 viewers. My 0 currently watching viewers, maybe they see it as neat too. Or maybe someone who watches it somewhere, sometime, somehow. Maybe they'll have a better success in sharing the neatness so everyone can play. We can live in a neat world. Literally. We can just do this all the time. Don't need to fight over isms. By the way, fighting, conflict, war, you're in the 7th hypothesis. If the 3rd is the providential and beneficial, the logos and providence, the intelligence and care given to us at each moment, because each moment happens like a film strip. You don't have to believe that, you can experience it, because the third, second, and first are kinds of spiritual experiences, the highest ones. The ones of the self and reality. It's neat. You can see the gap. That's the whole point of Kashmir Shivism. So you can have traditions or, spiritual traditions or even cultures based on this way of thinking, historically. But what's the opposite of that? Us versus them. Or the devil. The forces of good. So we can draw, I don't know, how will we draw this? An angel? The halo. Doesn't look like much of anything. Versus the devil. Us versus them. Catholics versus Protestant. Jews versus Palestinians. Rich versus poor. It's the survival of the fittest. Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war, we used to sing at church. There's a pitchfork there. How about good versus evil? How about just verses? How about that? Verses. You can make up a symbol if you like. Oh, maybe we can have it as an emoji in our chat if you're that way, if you have skill in making emojis. I think I need to become an affiliate on Twitch. And to become an affiliate, I need to have an average of 3 viewers each stream, which might not ever happen. So maybe I should be more controversial so I get some hate viewers. So I've ticked all the other boxes. I just need 3 Twitch viewers on average for my live streams. And then I can get my own emojis, and we can have these symbols. Maybe you could do a bomb. A bomb, maybe. Bomb. So yeah, so maybe if I was more controversial and I get some hate viewers who just tune into Hate Watch, but I don't even have that. I guess that's okay. I mean, I don't really want people to hate watch. I don't want people to become averse to their own quest. That's terrible. But yeah, I don't know. So equally so, what's the distorted reflection of there's only the physical world, there is no existence? Materialism. We're just a rock in space, that's it. We're all just chemicals. Reductionism. There is no such thing as happiness, it's just serotonin. There is no such thing as a beautiful painting, it's just $4 worth of paint on a $10 canvas, that's all. That's all a Rembrandt is. That's a rock. You can draw a picture of a rock. And then the 9th hypothesis is the worst one. The one where we say, that's sad and I'm sad for you.
You are a fantastic moron. If you don't understand this, you're either being intentionally obtuse because you want to be mad at something and you just don't know what you're poor.
Okay. I can't find... Okay. Trying to find the one where she says, I'm sad and I'm sad for you. No, that's sad and I'm sad for you. I think that's very funny. So, there's not even a rock. There's not even a rock. So we have a rock. And we have our Ghostbusters symbol. That's nihilism. It's not even a rock. Not even a rock. So this was the model that we presented in our non-viral video taking down Hassan Piker with philosophy, which of course is a joke. We recognize he's doing his best and seems to be trying to understand and trying to help. What we're doing is sharing what is required to actually help, because we need to awaken providence of the third, and also we need to understand this paradigm so we can understand what it takes to move and what direction you can move. And last time we saw, well, if the jump from every level requires Logos and Usia, but Logos and Usia is in the third, second, and in a special way the first, then nihilists and materialists and us versus them, Earth is a giant battleground, the forces of good shooting the bad guys, the only one defeating a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. The right wing are the good guys and the left wing are the bad guys, or the right wing vice versa. Or people who are an ism, I'm a Marxist or a socialist or a capitalist. Even people who think that there is a divine but no connection to the world, or even the religious folk. They're all stuck. They're all stuck. Because every significant, jump in being of a evolving individual requires Logos and Usia. But then we realize, hang on a second, there is something that we all have that has Logos and Usia that allows us to have the double-edged sword of being human. In other words, we have what we need to be the worst animals in the galaxy. Animals don't treat people the way we do. Animals don't have concentration camps. Animals don't have leaders that take away medical care from their people. Leaders don't take away school lunches. Leaders are not setting up concentration camps in Florida, El Salvador, and Guantanamo Bay. Animals don't decide, let's kill the Ukrainians because why not? So we have this double-edged sword where we can be the worst, but we also have the potential to be the best. And that principle is reflected in this. Why? If you need Logos and Usia to make the jump, but Logos and Usia are a highly evolved thing that even, like, the animals don't treat each other that badly, but they're not able to fulfill their evolutionary purpose in a single lifetime and play a significant role within the greater cosmos. They're just little doggies or little kitties. Maybe a couple of little kitties if you're lucky. So they don't have what they need to be the terriblest species, but they also don't have what they need to function in the highest possible way. Equally so, if this third, second, and first is the level of self-mastery where Logos and Usia is, how do we get there? How do we go through all of the stages if that's what we're here for? If true self-mastery requires not just understanding it, but feeling it. What does it take to get out of nihilism? What does it take to get out of materialism? What did it take to solve the problem you had in your life that required you to make that jump? Escape that nightmare that you had. What did it take? In other words, if there is a significance in not just understanding it, but going through it, how do we go through it if the good stuff is up here, third, second, and first? Well, the cause of our terribleness, our pathologos, which most purely is represented by the fourth, goes from the fourth all the way down. I mean, you can even have a pathologos if you think that the second is the self, then you're wrong. So what? The cause of our greatest injustice and ignorance and immaturity and the most horrible things we do to each other is the pathologos, but the pathologos has a shallow pool of Logos and Usia. The pathologos has a kind of reasoning to keep itself alive, your internal dialogue about how you suck and how no one likes you, and I better not do that thing because I'm going to fail, that causes your anxiety or anything like that. That's a kind of language. It's wrong. It's not the self of the first. It's not the highest experience or definition of the self in the second. It's not the highest functioning in the third. It's wrong, but it's still a voice. It still talks to you. It still stars in your daydreams and your night dreams and your fantasies, by the way. All of those KKK ICE goons out there kidnapping children from schools. What do you think they're doing? We function in the most fucking terrible ways. But there is something keeping them stuck to their ignorance. That's the Usia. There is a shallow pool, a stagnant kiddie pool full of kiddie piss. I wouldn't say kiddie piss. Full of urine, because everyone pees in the kiddie pool for some reason at the local pool. Stagnant, it's the slop. That's why slop content is most popular on YouTube. It's slop because it's a shallow pool of shallow logos. To have that voice, to have that way of thinking about yourself, to have that way of reacting to people, You suck. There's 2 words. I mean, it's stupid. Problems are caused by black people. That's one of the most stupid sentences a person can utter, but it's still a sentence. It's a shallow form of logos and a shallow form of ousia. So the ousia is what keeps it alive. It's not pure ousia in the second, or the functioning of that in the third, or a higher kind of ousia in the first. A shallow pool of that in the pathologos. That's the double-edged sword. So that just sounds terrible, pathologos. If that's the cause of all of our terribleness, how can you say it's a double-edged sword? Well, the positive side of it is this shallow pool can be used in philosophical midwifery to make these cognitive jumps, to make these evolutionary jumps. So the negative is our problems. The positive is what is the cause of our problems is the necessary principle, precondition, and used in midwifery cause for our highest functioning, to evolve from the worst to the best, gaining a mastery of that through understanding philodianoia, returning to our highest goal with the greatest possible art. So that was our diagnosis of Hassan. We saw that his diagnosis was recognizing a lot of the fascists and Nazis and Trumpers are in the 7th. Now, he didn't have a language that could he said us versus them. And his diagnosis was to give an us versus them kind of thing, but have it reflect Marxism and socialism. Isn't a bad idea. In other words, if this is all the expressions of self, then yeah, for people stuck in whatever level, give them a group identity in the 4th based on how well they are doing in philodianoia. What level of mastery of the art are you? Give them rankings. People in the 5th, oh, you feel like there is no connection to the divine? Oh, that's only because you need to do some more work in philodianoia. Us versus them thinking, you know what's the us versus them? The logos versus the pathologos. What's an ism? Create an ism, a socialism or whatever, based on the second, based on the logos. So not a bad diagnosis, but lacking a true understanding of all of the possible levels, lacking the lovely pictures we have, but lacking an awareness that you can't actually make change. So for all the work that Hassan is doing, he's not fixing things. In fact, people seem to make more content attacking him, feeling like, oh, if I'm down here and here is a guy who's smarter than me, I can feel smarter by shitting on him. I get people like this on this channel. They think what it means to be smart is just to say no, that's not true. Had one of these guys yesterday. His first reaction was no. Just to shit on things. Why? Because it's harder to understand. Well, it's not harder, it's more fun, but it takes more dedication and character to understand and create than it does to kick over a sandcastle. That's why people from families who are abusing the children and they don't learn understanding become bullies. That's why people who don't have their material conditions met don't have the time to reflect on themselves in this way. They become stupider and crueler. So what is needed? recognition that the cause of more people hating him than actually changing is because Logos and Ousia is needed for change, but that's only available in philosophical midwifery, meaning the principle, causes, conditions, and principles, remember? The principle is for human beings to make change, everyone needs to be getting their ass familiar with philosophical midwifery. It's the only activity that allows for spiritual development and evolutionary development. You can have experiences of each of these levels, and we do. You're not in just one. During the day, you might feel sad and nihilistic, but then, I don't know, then you feel like, materialistic. Or maybe you jump over, well, maybe there is something divine. I had this serendipitous experience, but it's not really connected to that's the thing. As human beings, we have a range that we go in and out of. But to make evolutionary change, just like you can have an acid trip and have an experience of a higher one, but it's not going to last. It's not going to change you. All right? That's why you need to develop through understanding. Understanding makes it stick. That's why that's why we're doing the model, to arrange it according to the dialectic and make lovely pictures to make it stick. To change how we are, but also to make a fundamental change in our way of being. As a principle, you need philosophical midwifery. It's the only thing that can make use of the pool of Logos and Ousia we have access to until we reach the third. And as a culture, we're not at the third yet. We're at the fourth and below. So we were able to look at Hassan's diagnosis and understand what he was saying to Emma.
I'm too pure.
Who's too pure, even better than he was. He was saying, I noticed a lot of people being manipulated by Trump are in the fourth and in the seventh. Us versus them. He couldn't say seventh, but we can. And by the way, these people are being manipulated by people in the eighth. People who think that the world is about collecting material possession. Capitalists. So people in the eighth are abusing the level of thinking and development of people in the seventh, which is shit. If somebody is, you don't abuse people because, you know more than them, let's abuse them. That's terrible. So people in the eighth, materialists, capitalists, are abusing the level of thinking of people in the seventh. Hey, they're the bad guys. Go and kill them so I can have all their material possessions. Not a bad diagnosis, lacking the language, of course. My remedy is to invite them into Marxism, a better way of saying us versus them, the bourgeois versus the proletariat, the haves versus the have-nots, but still giving them a mythology that allows them to relate to a higher level of being based on the level that they're at. Okay, not a terrible diagnosis, but one we can understand, number one. Number two, we can understand why it won't work. This principle, we're not robots. We have to experience it. And our development has to go through midwifery, because it would be an irrational, unjust world if you were able to just jump through a level because somebody gave you a nice story, a nice myth, a nice belief. You have to yourself go through midwifery, because you go through midwifery while learning the process too. Learning how to define a problem, learning what's involved in the steps of reflection, learning how to recognize the difference from what you believe is your problem, what it actually is. Learning how our past, present, and future are connected understandably. Learning how midwifery itself is the goal. It's the highest functioning. Hey, if the self functions in the highest way through the third, logos providentially, what's that art called? Midwifery. Meaning, you can't just give them a good story. Marxists, doesn't matter if it's Hassan or any leftists, same thing. Part of it, sure, why not? But you have to include midwifery because that's a principle of human development. It's just the way it is. Like you can say, like, let's use medicine as a model. You can tell stories about great football athletes or great Olympic athletes and how great it is to be healthy and eat well and exercise. Yes, that's inspirational and can awaken the will. But you also have to learn how to do that. You have to learn how to eat well, how to exercise, how to maintain a schedule, how to stay disciplined, how to play Balatro at the cardio, because cardio is boring as fuck. But if you're playing Balatro because you've made a promise, I'm only going to do Balatro when I'm on the cardio machine, that's something you've learned, a discipline you've learned, or whatever the Balatro equivalent is. Maybe there's a streamer you love that you can watch while you're on the treadmill or something like that. Maybe this guy? Probably not. I have 0 viewers. Average of 1 viewer, I think Twitch tells me. Similarly, that art of human development is philosophical midwifery. So he's like someone saying, oh, wouldn't it be great if we could learn medicine? Let's learn medicine, but for the soul. Okay? So we can understand that as well, why his diagnosis, we can understand his diagnosis, we can understand why it won't work, but also we can see how it could be improved. Because look, if someone's in the 7th, do you want them to go to the 6th? That's a step up, sure. But what if you can go from the 7th across this line to the 3rd? What if there are 2 possible movements, a linear step up or one across this line? What if there's a potential for someone to fall across this line and go from its reflection, its distorted reflection, from the 7th to the 9th? Is that something a doctor has to be aware of? When you're prescribing a medicine to help somebody go from one to a higher, but they have another problem, maybe they're an alcoholic, you have to be aware that if they take this medicine, they could end up worse. Do we want someone going from 7th to nihilism, right down the bottom? So we need to understand, number one, what is involved in being a human being, because maybe we're not just in one, maybe we are a collection of a couple throughout the day. Ups and downs, we have different states of mind. Sometimes we have different insights and things. We feel happier, feel sadder. Number one. Number two, what are the possible motions we can make? Let's say we have 4. Let's say there are, generally speaking, 4 of these hypotheses that we're in the course of a day, in the course of our level of development as a being. That's the wrong thing. Let's use what color? Let's say, just hypothetically speaking, let's say there are 4. Do it like this. For example, maybe 4 and 5 and 8 and 9. Maybe this is a personality type. And maybe of these 4, this one here is the strongest, is the ruling term. But maybe you haven't eaten enough and you go from 4 to 8. Maybe your girlfriend breaks up with you and you go to the 9. Maybe you realize, oh, hang on a second, I'm better on my own and can be in the 5th, someone on my own. Maybe this explains your whole life up until now. Would that be required to understand people? If so, we are saying to anybody, like anyone who actually is interested in understanding. So Hassan's saying, oh, leftists, is the way forward and understanding Marxism. That's still a love of understanding. Only it's in the physical world, philodianoia, because the physical world doesn't have the existence. So what Socrates calls philomathesis, not philodianoia, philomathesis. Loving of learning. Better than people who think life's collecting all of them, hoarding all of the material wealth. Better than thinks I'm going to give up, have a loser mentality for losers and give up and nihilist. Better than thinking us versus them is the way forward. That's an improvement. 6th is better than 7th, 8th, and 9th. But it's still a rejection or a denial of philosophy. And beyond that, the virtue that even is beyond philosophy. So we can also say, hang on a second. If being a personality isn't just being in one of them, but having a combination of, let's say, 4, and we recognize we don't want people playing us versus them because they're killing children, or they're keeping us in poverty, or they're being a tool from the capitalists that keep wealth inequality, which keeps everyone suffering and starving to death, or living on the street when there are enough empty houses to house everyone. We want to change them to a different personality. Hey, maybe even one that has the 2nd, 3rd, maybe 6th and 7th. Maybe this is an upgrade. So, a better way of diagnosing, a better way of recognizing an upgrade, which would require us asking the question, how many types of movements can there be? How many options? How many changes? And of course, recognizing that in order to make that requires, so both this and this, along with an understanding that to make change requires philosophical midwifery, we need to understand this model, that's philosophy. We need to recognize the principle and master the art of philosophical midwifery to allow those changes. We have to do dream analysis, because to get the specific details of a person's life that's needed to make those changes to apply to philosophy and midwifery requires the same love of understanding, love of the dialectic, use of the dialectic applied to dream analysis, and then we can bring in Hassan's remedy, Hassan's prescription, which was the 3rd thing, mythology. His suggestion was, let's make a Marvel Cinematic Universe, not us versus them, but to talk about socialism. talks about Marxism, a better way of understanding it than good guys pew-pewing the bad guys. So his offering of mythology is just the final section that requires 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4 together is called Philodianoia. That's the art we're learning here on the channel. The art that hopefully other people are going to master and be a better communicator of it than I am. Because again, one viewer, average of one viewer after streaming for a year and a half. So that's not fair. I think I get like 10 viewers who watch the Twitch afterwards, and maybe 5 of the YouTube videos when I post them. So that's where we're at so far. I'm going to take a quick pause and I'll be right back. All right, I'm back.
I can't walk and chew gum at the same time.
So, these are some interesting questions that we've raised, but also giving us a fantastic overview once again, and reminder and review of the art that we are discovering we are here to master and go through as a human being, allowing us to overcome the potential for the worst possible human behavior, the negative side of the sword, and go through what's needed to become the best kind of beings possible. Oh, and we said that we're going to relate it back to these causes. If you notice, these 5 or 8, 4 on this side, 4 if the one self exists. Now, of course, the first hypothesis is the self that's beyond existence. But if you're going to be somebody like Aristoteles, who doesn't think that the true nature of what is the pure one self, then you are going to be in one of these other 8 categories. Says Parmenides, giving us the 9 hypotheses of Parmenides, and we are able to understand them as simply the dialectic applied to what's most significant, all of the possible levels of understanding and state of mind that we could go through as cultures, as societies, or as individuals. And and by arranging it in this way, we can gain a better insight into how they relate as reflections or denials across these symmetry lines, which is neat. And I think it's neat.
Do a poggers.
Oh, and Emma says that we are doing a poggers, so that means we are doing good on Twitch. We talked about how individuals and maybe cultures and societies are not just in one. You can't really be a strict dualist. Even people who think that they are who are most commonly materialists sometimes think, well, yeah, there are good guys and bad guys, or yeah, maybe socialism is better than capitalism, or maybe even they're involved in a group of some kind. Sometimes you can't really be a strict dualist. You must think that there is some residue connection with it. So in other words, a more accurate description of a personality type would be a combination. Hypothetically, for our example, let's pick 4. And by the way that we arrange them might be significant. Maybe the first term is the highest. This is the ruling term, maybe. And within there are ways in which they relate to each other. Because there are things and relationships. Maybe. We're just hypothesizing. But we can take this model and relate it back to our understanding of causes, which was our last episode. So we recognize that currently in the Roman tradition, we recognize that there are 4 Aristotelian causes. The first and final cause, to build a house, you have to need a house. It's the first cause, but also you know that you finish building the house once you can live in it, so it's also the final cause. You need blueprints, you need a builder, and you need material. So the material cause, the efficient cause, whatever the Aristotelians call the blueprint cause, and the first and final cause. Now we played a fun game where we recognized, hang on a second, the first and final cause, that's exactly the way that we understand the first hypothesis of Parmenides. So let's draw a line here, giving us 2, 3, maybe even the Aristotelians or the materialists are missing a cause here. And can we use that, what we saw in the hypotheses, the model, the paradigm applied to its highest? Hey, is this the blueprints? Is this the model or archetype of everything that unfolds into creation? So here is our blueprint cause. Actually, let's find out what they call it. All right, I got the words. So the Aristotelians call the model the formal cause, like the blueprints for building a house. But hey, ideally though, would that be the second in reality? There has to be a builder, that's the efficient cause. Hey, in the most ideal way, does pure intelligence, pure being, function in the gap to communicate to us through logos and providence, allowing us to connect with what we need for our evolution and growth? In midwifery, philosophy, dream analysis, and mythology, and maybe every random thought and fantasy and distraction and tangent we have, and every dream we have, already said that, can be seen if you apply the dialectic to be the richest sources of personal insight, especially what we need for our level of development. Therefore, the efficient or doing cause, the builder, is that the third hypothesis? And of course, Aristotelians, this is the current way of thinking, the Roman way, the materialistic way, not the Greek way or the true way. There's got to be wood, stuff. So we said, hang on a second. The final cause, the goal, the formal cause or the blueprints, the efficient cause or the builder, the stuff that they build with, they're missing one. They're missing one. But also we reflected on this art we are learning, philosophical midwifery, requires someone to, hey, you're not building with wood, you are working on the soul, the psyche of an open and curious, truth-seeking individual. Notice, materialists can reject the existence of a psyche, of mind, of a soul. Therefore, people are just workers. Hey, you want to murder 100,000 Palestinians, Trump and Netanyahu and the Americans? Who cares? Go for it. They're just pieces of wood. There's no meaning and purpose and significance and value to every single fucking living human being. Right? So we can see that, hey, this way of thinking is a sickness. Because what we are doing in this game of Philodianoia is recognizing that every single person is meaningful and valuable and has a purpose to fulfill here. Everyone can play. No need for genocide, no need for poverty, no need for prisons, no need for concentration camps, no need for any of that fucking horse shit. We can grow the fuck up. Moving from the Aristotelian or Roman or materialistic causes, the lower hypotheses of Parmenides, this side of our development, every single one of these is a rejection of the truth. That's how we understand it. It's what happens if there doesn't exist. Now, applied to the hypotheses of Parmenides, it's what if the self doesn't exist, but if the self is the highest term, it can be used for anything. What if the soul doesn't exist? What if meaning doesn't exist? What if the divine doesn't exist? This. Now, applied to the highest, it's the self. But because the self is the highest, it has scope over everything else. Meaning, the Aristotelian or Roman or European or modern or materialistic causes that we currently use in our thinking in our everyday world is a sickness understood here. What else does that mean? Well, how do we move from here to here? If this is what if we are to develop through these causes or ultimately this direction and then to the self, philosophy in the chat. So philosophy starts with an unprovable assumption that we apply logic to determine the implications. No, it is provable. You start with questions. So we read 3 different things. We read Socrates' dialogues in the Balboa translation, so we actually have the words. We read the Philosophical Midwifery book, which is the art of understanding applied to solving human problems, and our dreams. But you're right, we have to read the text itself because each one of those 3 things are masters of the logos. They are people, or dreams is not a person, but people who have mastered this already. So we're learning, like when you want to become a mechanic, you go to a master mechanic. But we start by learning to read the words without interpretations. And then we take those right opinions and we organize them into a system of understanding. No, not appeal to authority, the opposite. Appealing to authority is belief. If you're appealing to authority, you're going to a master mechanic and you say, hey, why does the gasket go on the carburetor? And he says, just believe me. If you ever come across a master mechanic or a priest or a parent or a teacher who says, just fucking believe me, that's an appeal to an authority. They are trying to fuck you over. Sorry, using harsh language here. It's been a long stream. They are trying to oppress you. Our movement of development is from belief, where we kind of grow up, because everyone gets false beliefs from childhood, because we all grow up with parents, and we have to move into understanding. Okay, so you start by going to a master mechanic. There's a reason to trust him. He's got a successful business. He can fix cars. He's shown to be able to do it. There's a reason why we trust Socrates. Okay, there's a reason why we do philosophical midwifery. It's the only paradigm of psychotherapy or solving problems that has been empirically validated. It's the only one. Of course it is. It's the model. Same thing for dreams. Now, you start by keeping an open mind, an open, curious mind, and then you gather the right opinions. That's not the end. You have to, and by the way of doing that is to look for questions and puzzles, because they're not feeding you, they're not babying you. It's written in a certain way that if you are genuinely seeking truth, you will start to notice he's leaving things out. He's leaving puzzles for you to solve. Like a good film director, like Christopher Nolan. There's a twist in here. There's actually more than one twist. Okay? You take those collection of right opinions and you arrange them according to a hierarchy. That's what we're doing here. We're seeing the hierarchy of different stages of development using the model of understanding. That's the dialectic. The dialectic is the model of thinking. And that's just understanding. It's still a likely, like you said, an assumption. It's still a hypothesis. It's a likely hypothesis. But you can carry many questions, carry many hypotheses or ifs. Then you have to apply them in your own personal experience to validate them. In philosophy, what we are learning to understand is a realm called being, which is beyond the physical world. That's where knowledge and wisdom is. Okay, different from modern, what we get told at school. It's just a bunch of dumb opinions from dumb white guys, dead white guys. That's not philosophy, that's opinions. Philodoxia, love of opinions. Philosophia, love of wisdom, is specifically studying the realm of being, or the second hypothesis of Parmenides. The Enlightenment experience for Taoists. So we use the symbol of Taoism to represent the second hypothesis. In midwifery, or solving problems, look, these are the 4 aspects in philodianoia. Philodianoia means love of understanding. It's the art we're all here to master as human beings. We can only master here as human beings. So we read Socrates so we can learn the dialectic and apply it to what's true in philosophy, verified in your own experience of higher dimensions of reality. We apply it to what's false to uncover fundamental false belief about self and reality that we get from childhood that causes our repeating cycles of problems, the negative self-talk, our tangents and fantasies. Our dreams tell you about it. Keeps you repeating the same cycles of failure, but also blinds you from any evidence and reason that shows you that you're wrong. That's called a pathologos belief. It's not a scientific belief backed by evidence and reason. It's not a supernatural belief. That is an absurd belief. You can't prove whether Mary was a virgin. You just have to believe it because Daddy says so. It's not even a prejudice belief. Prejudice beliefs are disproven by evidence and reason, but you can change your mind. You leave your small town, you go to college, and you realize, oh shit, here is some new evidence and experience that shows that my racist dad was wrong. And you can drop a prejudice. You can't do that with a pathologos because it was based on an imitation from childhood. You didn't learn it through reason. And we got a sound drop from that, I think.
The problem is that you can't reason someone out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into.
You can't reason yourself out of a position you didn't reason yourself into. That's the pathologos. So the art of using this development into understanding, love of understanding, applied to solving human problems is called philosophical midwifery. Therefore, we can conclude the most important thing that human beings need to do is this, midwifery. That's why we're still fighting Nazis. That's why we still have capitalism and oppression and prisons and wealth inequality. We are
No one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems.
unable to address and solve problems. Yeah, you start, I guess you can start with a rational opinion that there is a value to your existence. Sure. But you can also carry that as a question. If, by the way, you can apply the understanding of the dialectic to seek to understand and verify in your own experience the true nature of reality and self beyond the physical. You can apply it to solving problems. You can apply it to dreams. That gives you the guidance. It's your guru for doing both of those two things. And then you can take your experiences and tell stories about it, because if it's the most important thing, if it's what we're here to do, we need to communicate it with everyone. That's mythology. Philosophy, midwifery, dream analysis, and mythology are the 4 aspects of philodianoia, the art that we are all here to master. Now, if we have what we need to gain this level of self-mastery, to go through all 9 stages of thinking and experience, from nihilism, materialism, us versus them, socialism, strict dualism, group thinking, the third hypothesis, connecting to divine care and understandability in each gap between each moment of physical creation, and beyond that to the direct experience of your mind turning around to know itself as the highest level of existence. That's called ousia in the Greek. It's the enlightenment experience for the Taoists. And then beyond that, you can take all of the understanding and experience you've gained in mastering the art of understanding through this evolutionary journey to even reflect on the greatest experience and say, holy shit, what is the cause of that? Or what's the self that's experiencing itself in this greatest experience of pure bliss or beauty itself? Philosophy studies the aspects of it. It's pure justice, it's pure beauty, etc., etc. So if we can go through that, we can address the question that you have. If humans can go through this, not as a belief, but as something we can understand and verify in our own experience or knowledge, what does that mean for our species? Does it mean that human beings are important? If you were to seek a guide in your own development. No, it's not Western philosophy, it's just thinking. It's just using your mind to understand your mind. See, we're told that there are different kinds of philosophies. That's a lie. Because different kinds of things is a manyness. You can have many different opinions. That's modernism. That's the Roman tradition. There is no truth. It's all a matter of opinion. Kant's opinion, Hegel's opinion, who gives a fuck? That's ignorance. What we are learning is the truth. Which means learning what understanding is itself. How can we apply that mastery of understanding to know ourselves and the nature of reality? And then awaken questions like Milk and Horns have. Well, hang on a second. What does that mean? If human beings have this nasty, unsuspected false belief called a pathologos that causes us to act in the worst possible ways, but forces us to have problems, giving us the conditions for self-reflections. Hey, we're still fighting Nazis. We still have wealth inequality. Oh, thanks for the follow. Welcome. But gives us the stakes, the importance to awaken our will to go through philosophical midwifery, learn the healing art, so we can become the best sorts of people. If human beings have this double-edged sword, we treat each other terribly. Animals do not treat each other this way. That's why on YouTube videos, you see like a lovely video of a cat and a pig being friends, and you see all the comments are like, animals are way better than humans, and it has like 1,000 likes. Yes, humans treat each other in the worst possible fucking immature and irrational ways. But, here's the but. But we also therefore have what we need to go through every stage of evolution possible for any intelligent species, not just humans. Anyone who is awoken to 2 things: language, we call it logos, and self-reflection, ousia. Meaning, all of these 9 stages of development outlined by Parmenides, who was Socrates' teacher, which we are seeing today is the dialectic, the structure of thinking, 4 categories, applied to the highest term. all of the levels of understanding and the associated states of mind, if we can go through all of them. And the only way of going through all of them is through philosophical midwifery, philosophy, and dream analysis. It's the only things, necessarily, and we're learning why that has to be the case. What does it mean for human beings themselves? Does that mean that we can go through every stage of evolution in one lifetime? Does it mean we can escape the cycle of reincarnation? Does it mean that human beings will awaken to the highest kind of self-mastery? And if that's the case, does that mean that humanity itself as a species is worth saving because we might have a greater role to play within a greater cosmos? I don't know. These are questions. That's the game. We look for the most significant questions we can have, and we apply our highest understanding and vision to it. Not just understanding, but our states of mind or visions. Have you had an experience of the gap? Have you been in a flow state? Yes, the gap's in between stage 3. So often we call that being in the zone sometimes. Yes, a flow state, being in the zone, being on fire in basketball. But what we are seeing is, hey, what we are learning is how to approach someone in the third, recognize them because we've learnt how to understand all of these things, applying the dialectic. Oh, you're in the third. Let's have a chat. Let's have a dialectic in conversation where maybe you can ask this person some questions. By the way, ever wondered what it was? Ever wondered how to get into it completely? Allowing them maybe, along with midwifery, of course, because if they have a false belief that blocks them, there is always a false belief that blocks you from every step. That's what a block is. But this kind of questioning, yes, you got it. Exactly, you're right. Frames per yes, you got it. So a good metaphor is frames per second, easy for you to say, of a camera, giving us the illusion of movement. So this is good. So you can use this metaphor to relate to someone who is unfamiliar with the third as a dialectician or someone mastering the single art of philodianoia. For example, maybe you see someone who, see, this level of hypotheses are if you think there is something beyond the physical world, a realm of being, a realm of existence. If you don't, you're in this category. So in the dialectic, we have 4 things. Now normally in philosophy, we apply it to aspects of being, like this experience of pure being is experienced as beauty itself. So in the symposium, we apply the dialectic to wondering about beauty as a way of understanding and creating the conditions to go there, experience pure beauty. You start by defining the subject, the self in relation to itself. What can you say? I'm going to use an example of a bike. Let's say nobody has seen a bike before, and you want to explain it to them. Okay, you might start by saying things about the bike, the subject, in relation to itself. Handlebars, tires. But then you want to tell the person how it functions. The subject that you've just defined, how does it relate to others? How does it function? It's demonstration. The first one is definition. You use it to ride to the shop and get a meat pie and a can of Coke. Okay? Now that functioning that you've just explained to someone or yourself, how does it relate to others? That's division. What else can you do with that functioning? Can you do a awesome wheelie and a 460 180 nollie flip to impress the crush that you have? Yeah, or sell it for money. Yeah, you get it. So you can explore all of the context. Now, you probably want to think of relevant context to you. You can also talk about the absurdities that follow if you can't sell it for money, or you can't do a nollie flip, or you can't join a BMX group or whatever. To show that the absurdities that follow if you don't have it, but also the necessity for it being. And then ultimately, from this, you synthesize, because you're going to have a lot of ideas and themes and lots of interesting things that come up in your exploration of a BMX bike. You synthesize that into a single theme or a single idea or a whole that incorporates all the parts. That's synthesis. And then analysis is to take that unification back to your original subject. So now you've got an even better definition of a bike, or in philosophy of beauty itself, than you started. So, in philosophy, we gain the material to apply a dialectic to from the book. We're not carrying our own dumb opinions from our dumb society and our dumb family and whatever. No. We are reading Socrates' explanation of beauty itself. We practice the fun game of talking about it in a dialectic, which is the model of reasoning. And we come back to the beginning with an improved definition, which means we can do it again. We can start with this new definition and do it again. That's how we level up. That's the dialectic. Well, yes, that will be something that you can explore. Okay? So, that's the 4 stages: definition, demonstration, division, and conclusion. And conclusion has 2 parts. Now, what we do in philosophy is we talk about things that exist eternally. We're not really interested in bikes. I mean, you still learn how to think and talk about bikes better, but we're interested in things that exist in the realm of being. Our physical world we call the world of becoming. It's what we see through our physical senses, because everything's changing, becoming. But the realm of being is what we study in philosophy. That's why modern philosophy is horse shit. Because they think it's about opinions of the physical world. Kant's opinions, Hegel's opinions, Nietzsche's opinions. That's what Socrates calls philodoxia, the love of opinions. Our tradition is the counterattack. We killed Socrates, and the Romans said, hey, don't do understanding. We are going to start Christianity and kill everyone and get you to be blindly obedient to authorities. That's where we are today. We have to rediscover true philosophy. That's why we have to explain that this isn't a philosophy, it's just philosophy. Because philosophy is studying being. Now, because we're studying being, we're looking at things that exist in being. So you can do a definition, demonstration, division, synthesis, analysis, or conclusion of the aspects of being, like beauty itself or justice itself, the ideal or archetype of beauty or justice. But hey, you also want to do a dialectic of what if it doesn't exist. So you can cover all your bases. So in other words, what if beauty was just a physical thing? What could you say about it? Well, it's just an illusion. Or it's just a, it's just a byproduct of sexual selection. There's no such thing as beauty. It's just a trick that our mind plays on us so we can mate and pass on our physical genetic code. That would be a definition of what beauty is if it doesn't exist. Well, actually, no. How it functions, or demonstration, would be it functions to get you to get you to have sex with fit members of your species, or, okay? Division. How else is it used? In GTA, yeah. It's used to get you to sell video games. It's to sell Coke. Look how beautiful this supermodel is. Buy Pepsi. And then finally, after being affected by that kind of thing, how would you relate back to it? I think beauty is stupid. There is no such thing as beauty. Everything is equally beautiful and ugly, whatever. So how would you relate back to the subject? Now, that's the dialectic. Mythology is turning it into a story. That's where you have fun. So you can create a Marvel cinematic universe where instead of beauty, make it Spider-Man. What if Spider-Man got bitten by a spider? And then take all of the terms that you have used in this one to make a fun story or video game. Now you also have to make a cinematic universe where he isn't bitten by a spider. To remember or have fun communicating what follows if beauty doesn't exist. That's the dialectic. Applied purely to aspects of being is philosophy. Applied to uncovering our problems to free ourselves from our ignorance and repeating suffering, that's midwifery, philosophical midwifery, giving birth to our sick ideas. Applying this dialectic to your dreams allows you to connect with your guide for both. Your spiritual guide is your dream master. All of this I'm telling you as opinions. Don't believe me. It's up to you to put it all together, test it out, and see if you benefit. Otherwise, yes. Beauty can be mathematically formulated by looking at the mechanics of art. Takes away... Yes. So that's exactly what you would put in this. What if it's not real? But in this symposium, which we're going to be reading soon, I think, on this channel, beauty is needed to make you attracted to your highest goals because beauty itself is in being. Right, the real versus the illusion, that's it. So one side is the real, one side is if it's just an illusion. But you have to do all 8. Now, this is the structure of the dialectic applied to what's true in philosophy, applied to what's false in midwifery. Yes, you got it. You apply it to unpacking the meaning of your dreams, but what we're doing today is applying it to the highest possible. If this is the structure of thinking itself, the paradigm of the understandability of reality, what if we applied it to the most important thing, the self? So that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 if it exists, and 1, 2, 3, 4 if it doesn't exist. Giving us a complete system of understanding of all possible ways of thinking that humans can have individually or collectively or historically, and each level of understanding is accompanied by a state of mind. For instance, the Taoists is a way of thinking where they think that being exists. Yes, being exists. However, you can reject the existence of a metaphysical world or a non-physical world. That's the cause of the physical world. And then you're in the 6th. Now, we looked at the gap, the functioning of pure intelligence within each moment to give us what we need to solve our problems, to give us that spiritual guide in our dreams, to give us the art of midwifery, the art of philodianoia, because you apply understanding to all of this. That allows us to get to grow and evolve and become better. But if you reject it, you're in the 7th hypothesis, which is self to other if the logos doesn't exist, if intelligibility doesn't exist. So people in the 7th, see, while the 3rd is characterized by providence, divine care, and logos, divine understandability, you don't believe this, you understand it and master it for yourself and experience it yourself. Anyone who says just believe me is trying to scam you. That's why the fascists and the right-wingers appeal to religious folk who have already trained to blindly believe and not think for themselves. That's why Trump's not a Christian, but he's trying to appeal to evangelists in his base. That's the 7th. There isn't a understandable and caring nature of the way that things relate to each other it's us versus them. It's the devil. So we can say versus, or we can have a picture of the devil with the beard and his angry face. That's a way of thinking about reality, a way of understanding reality. Yes, you got it, you got it, you got it. So the second and third is where you have ousia and logos, pure understanding and pure self-reflection. People in the seventh don't reflect on themselves. And they reject understanding. It's just faith. The good guys are the guys who are the Americans, and the bad guys are the brown people. That kind of shit. The good guys are the men, the bad guys are the women. That kind of shit. The only thing that can win is a good guy with a gun shooting a bad guy with a gun. That kind of way of thinking. So, this model will allow you to understand all of the 9. By the way, Parmenides, who gives us this model, says, my hypothesis of the real self, exactly, you got it. We're trying to overcome that programming of our past. My idea of the self is beyond even existence. It's the first hypothesis. And his first hypothesis explains a pure one that doesn't even exist. It's beyond it. It's not nihilist. Nihilist is the worst. That's the 9th. So the image is a picture of a rock with a cross through it. There's not even a physical world. That's nihilism. It's a way of understanding and a feeling state. That's the worst. So Parmenides gives his definition of the self. Good question. Good question. Good question. You're heading in the right direction. Keep it as a question. Keep that question as you go. The longer you keep that question, hopefully for many, many years, when you answer it, it has the potential to illuminating you to a higher level of being. So keep these questions. These are good questions. Don't let me answer your question. I'd be a bad friend if I ruined a question before it came to birth or came to its maturity. So he said, by the way, this is my hypothesis of the self. Aristoteles, who he was talking to, says, no, I don't think that's likely. So instead of midwifing him, finding out his false belief, he did something different. He said, okay, you know what else? I'm going to give you all of the other likely ways of thinking about self. And he gives these 8, second 2 through 9, giving us a complete paradigm and map of all of the different ways of thinking and feeling anyone can have. All of which isn't the self of Parmenides' self. And we're using this to recognize what's needed for people to make change. And right now we're saying, hang on a second, we can also apply this model, the dialectic, to understanding causes. We have the materialist cause, or the Aristotelian causes, that people think through currently in our society, in the Roman culture that we're stuck in. There is the final cause. If you want to build a house, the cause is you want a house to live in. There is the formal cause, the blueprints that the builder follows. The efficient or doer cause, you need a builder. And you also need some stuff. You need some wood and some nails. Now, we are taught in our culture that this is how you understand things in the world. Now, we recognize, hang on a second, all of them treats human beings. If this is your way of thinking, you are in here, this side. Because treating people like physical things allow you to justify war and genocide and poverty and wealth inequality and exploitation. If you don't value that all human beings have a mind, that's the second. All human beings can participate in not belief in some leader, but understanding, and understanding along with the model of the ideal is needed for benefit or art. So we can say the two fundamental features, or three, let's say three, the three things that are lacking in the materialist cause or the Aristotelian causes is the logos, the understandability of nature, not just understandability, but knowability. We call it intelligibility. The ideal, the true paradigm of true beauty, true justice, and of course, the whole reason for all of this, you as self, to know self. The first, second, and third. These are the true levels of enlightenment. The Aristotelian causes don't have them. So we can do something. We can recognize, hang on a second, let's apply the Aristotelian causes to our model of the dialectic, which is understanding. Hey, the blueprints, the ideal model, it's a physical version without logos and ousia, mind and self. Yes, you get it. You're on it. Yes, we have that program. The fact that we can buy into what's false, the shadow of the true, means it's like we're hardwired in some way to be seeking the true. Only we have to get the pretenders off the throne. That's philosophical midwifery. Hey, you don't belong here. You're not the truth. Get out of the way. That's philosophical midwifery. So we can be free to put the real things on the throne. That's philosophy. And dreams are your guide for both. And then once you get it, share it. Make good stories. That's mythology. Those are the four parts of the love of understanding. So we can recognize, hang on a second, the formal cause, that's like the model. The efficient cause, that's like the third hypothesis. Your guide, your dream master, or a dialectician, or a midwife. So let's take these Aristotelian causes and add what's missing. The logos, mind or ousia, and the self. So we're not doing midwifery, philosophical midwifery, the dialectic to help people uncover and remove their problems. On wood, in fact, even a person. If you're a person, you're not ready. You have to come to your midwife, your friend in this game, and say, hey, look, I've got a problem. And they'll say, give me a definition of your problem. Definition, first stage, define your problem. And if you say, oh, I've got this problem, but I think I can figure it out, then they'll say, get out of here. If you think you've got the answers, go out and apply them. Reach your most meaningful goal with excellence. If you think that you already have the answers, you're coming to a teacher with a full cup. How can they pour in what you need to learn if your cup's full? Get out of here. Go apply what you think is true. Come back when you got a problem. Then you'll come back. You'll come back, yes. That's what we learnt in the Meno. And if you check out the YouTube channel, there's a link below. We have a series where we read the Meno. And there's a link to the text as well. You get it for free. The Meno calls that a level of excellence, a virtue called being stung. Being not what we think being knowledge is, having all the answers like Donald Trump. Oh, I know all the answers, I know everything. Shut up, you don't. You're lying. Actually, it's being empty. realizing you don't know, but you want to find out. Being stung, like being stung by a bee or a stingray. Being stung by a stingray and being in the middle of the ocean. I don't know what to do. I don't have any of the answers. I'm completely lost. Right. Because you know what? In the Meno... Oh, good for you. In the Meno, Socrates is talking to Meno, and Meno... Oh, nice. Oh, I'm glad. Meno is a rich kid from a well-connected family. And he thinks he knows what virtue is. Oh, yes. That's why I'm doing it. I've been doing it for a while, and I don't have a lot of viewers, but if I can connect with one person, it's worth it. And Meno thinks he has all the answers. He goes, hey, Socrates, can we teach excellence? And Socrates is like, whoa, hang on there, son. Don't you want to know what excellence is first? Before you ask whether or not it can be taught? Don't you want to define before you do demonstration and division? He goes, no, I know what virtue is. It's easy. It's hurting your enemies and being kind to your friends. Like a Nazi shit. But very, very common. Right? We want to get rid of the immigrants. We want to genocide the Palestinians. We want to teach women that they're to know their place by taking away any of their health care or their reproductive care. Teach them for not having sex with me. Incel shit. But anyway, so he teaches, so you can read it together. There comes a point where Meno's like, I thought I knew what virtue was, but now I'm so pissed off. Because I used to give these great speeches. Right, you got it. I used to give all these great speeches about virtue in front of all these people. I went on Joe Rogan's podcast and I talked about excellence. I went on Fox News and I gave all these... Yes. Yeah. It's very, very much needed. I went on Fox News and I gave these speeches, but now it's like I know nothing. Oh, interesting. I know nothing about virtue. And he got mad. He got mad at Socrates, who just asked him a series of questions to help him realize he didn't know. He says, you are ugly like a flat-headed stingray. And also, I'm pissed at you because you've stung me. I used to talk for ages about excellence, but now I don't know what to say. I'm like lost in the ocean. And you better watch yourself because if you're not careful, I'm gonna kill you because you're a witch. And Socrates says, hang on a second there, son. And he kind of brings him down in a very charming way. Part of this dialectician art is how do we communicate what's difficult to hear? Because humans have it difficult. It's difficult for humans to hear this stuff. He's very charming, Socrates. And he says, oh, you know what? You're just calling me a flat-headed stingray, talking about my personal appearance because you're so good looking. And you're playing a game that you talk about my appearance and then I talk about your appearance. Because you're so handsome, it's going to be something wonderful. I'm not going to fall into that game. See how he brings him down? And by the way, I'll accept that metaphor as being a stingray that stung you, only if you are empty and stung and you don't know what to do and you're all puzzled and you're all out at sea because the stingray was able to sting you because the stingray was even more stung himself. I have the excellence, the selfness of being stung. And if that's how I stung you, then I'll take it. Now, let's get back to our conversation. Now, that's an interesting state of mind. Because if you are going through this process of personal development, you have to go through midwifery to find out what you don't even know you're certain about. Like Meno in Justice, like anyone on Joe Rogan's podcast, or any politician. Oh, I know, well, you don't fucking know shit, you liars. But that's good. Socrates is saying, I am even most empty. pretending we know stuff isn't helpful. So, the first cause in the material world, the Aristotelians, is a piece of wood. The first cause in the true art, which has logos, ousia, and self, that's the change. The physical world of becoming, physical stuff, materialism, versus the realm of being. You're not a piece of wood. You are a person who is stung. Let's write it on the board. Someone who is open and curious and seeking truth and excellence. That's the first cause in human evolution. Being stung. You got to show up. You got to find your way to this podcast. You got to get your ass to a midwifery talk in this curious state. Curious because you realize you don't know how to solve your problems. Or, in philosophy, you don't know the true nature of self. You've tried everything you can to solve problems and reach your highest goal with excellence, and you know you can't do it. I'm stung. I'm ready for a midwife talk. Now, in the Aristotelian causes, that's a material cause. But there has to be an efficient cause, a builder who uses the wood. Now, if we add logos, ousia, and self to that, what's the name of the person who uses the dialectic, the logos, the love of understanding, uses the model of pure being, ousia, to help people discover the self? That's the dialectician or the midwife. You got it, midwife or dialectician. We write midwife up here too. Midwife, which is the efficient cause, but with these terms added. One is the dialectic if it doesn't exist, one if it does. Now, what's the model of beauty? Hey, when we're young, we get a false model of excellence, a false model of beauty. When our parents looked so big and wise and knowing, and daddy turned to you and he seemed like he was caring, and it seemed like a spiritual initiation experience. Care, focus, seemed like you were giving you full attention, letting you in on a secret of the family. And he says to you, never trust women. And you're 3 or 4 years old, and you're like, wow, I've just been let into the teaching. That's the origin scene of your pathologos. Something like that. Everyone is different, but everyone has one. It's not personal. So what if we actually had the true, not the blueprints for that, but where does true beauty exist? Where does true excellence exist? Where does true care and intelligence exist? Where does true strength exist? Pure being. The second hypothesis. That's what we study in philosophy. The third hypothesis is the model for the dialectician or midwife. The second hypothesis is the paradigm of reality itself that you need. And the better like we're reading the Symposium or the Meno or the Republic to learn about justice, all of these aspects of being we call the selfers. Because the word self is like a title, like Mr. Smith or Dr. Jones. Yes. We are defining the aspects of pure being. It's experienced as a oneness. That's ousia. But intellectually, you can come back and say, oh, hang on a second. It was beautiful. In fact, it was beauty itself. Oh, that's an eidos. In school, they say it's the forms, but that's a mistranslation from a guy named Jowett. not a form, it's an aspect. Everything was perfectly ordered the way it had to be. Self-justice. It was perfect goodness. Self-goodness. Right. By existing in time, we get to reflect on pure being, allowing us, yes, you get it, you got it. Allowing us to break down those aspects of that overwhelmingly perfect experience, allowing us to develop understanding. You can't develop understanding in the experience, but you can here. Now, one of the questions in philosophy is, what's the significance of being born, forgetting that experience, and having to get back there through understanding? So, all we are doing is taking the 4 Aristotelian causes, recognizing it gives us what we need to get problems, but it doesn't give us what we need to solve problems. In other words,
no one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems.
Yes, that's the question. What is needed to, what Socrates calls in the Phaedo, remove the chains of our ignorance and suffering, our fate, but also escape the prison of reincarnation? And does it involve mastering every single one of these causes? Learning what it means to be open and curious, but being okay with it. Learning what it means to be a dialectician, to be most caring, most charming, most beneficial, most caring, beneficial, I guess. To learn the nature of the paradigm that you might not be able to have in the experience because it's an all-at-oneness. And use all of them to return to the self. Is that needed? Don't know, but it's a good question. But we can say that one of the reasons we have problems is this way of thinking, this Roman or materialist way, this rejection of the Logos and Socrates, gives us what we need to have problems. It doesn't give us what we need to solve problems. It doesn't give us what we need to make the jump from every level of being to the next one. Why? To make the jump requires self-reflection, that's ousia, that's the second and third. It requires logos, language, dialectic, that's the second and third, but we're not at the second and third. But our problems, our false belief about the self, has a kind of shallow reasoning. That's the voice that says, I'm not good enough. It's going to go badly. My mind isn't good enough. Myself isn't good enough. I need to be a slave to someone else. There's a shallow version of the Logos keeping our problem alive. Equally so, there is a shallow version of ousia to keep the self-protecting nature, the self-fulfilling nature, the self-sabotage of our problem alive. In other words, the only way a human being can make a change or a jump to another level of evolution is to make use of the Logos and ousia we do have in our problem, in the little kiddies pool, full of pee, but it's still a pool. That's the significance of philosophical midwifery. It's the art that allows human beings to evolve. Yes. Making use of the people. That's the importance of learning philosophical midwifery. We can understand that with the causes. Hey, take the ones you are familiar with. The dialectic if the logos and self and being does not exist. And then do the other side of the dialectic, like we're learning in philosophy. What if it does exist? What if it does exist? What do we mean by existence? Being. What existence is. It is eternally. So, what's the stuff we work on? Being stung, an open, curious, seeking soul. What's the builder? The dialectician. The worker that uses those things if it does exist. What's the blueprints for the house? The paradigm itself, existing eternally. What's the first and final cause? What's the goal of the whole thing? The one self. Hang on a second. That's the first hypothesis of Parmenides. That's the second hypothesis of Parmenides. That's the third hypothesis of Parmenides. We're missing the fourth. That's the fifth hypothesis of Parmenides. In other words, the same dialectic can be applied to understand the causes, to show your friends, to show your family, or if they're interested in it, to show your true friends and partners, teachers, other people on the journey.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
What you're learning of the dialectic, the difference between what we are told is philosophy and what it really is, the difference between the Roman or materialist tradition and the Greek or Hellenic tradition. Itself is a demonstration of the two parts of the dialectic that you do to understand the selfers in being in philosophy, beauty itself in the symposium, justice itself in the Republic. A way of showing, hey, this is why we have problems. We have the conditions and causes for getting a pathologos. We don't have the conditions or causes for removing it. And that's a fun thing we talked about in our last episode. Now, today's episode, we're going a little bit further. We actually, hang on a second. Are we actually in just one hypothesis? Like, don't we change? Like, sometimes I might feel happy, but then I haven't eaten enough. Maybe I feel kind of sad. Maybe my girlfriend breaks up with me. I don't have a girlfriend currently, but I can imagine. And I feel depressed. In other words, can we say that, what if there was like, I don't know, 4? Maybe we're more often in this one, but sometimes we're in this one, sometimes we're in this one, sometimes we're in this one. Could we make a map of human personalities? Oh, not just human personalities, but cultures. For instance, is our current world ruled by people in the 4th? Christians, Muslims, and Jews, are they the people in the leadership positions? Are there nihilists out there though? And materialists out there though? Nihilists in the 9th. Materialists, that's a rock. We're just a rock in space, that's it. Because there's no mind. And hey, are there people who think that there might be a divine, but we are just like ants to it? Of course, the divine doesn't care about us. We're just like specks in a universe. So there's a dualism. That's why there's a ghost on this side and a lightning bolt disconnecting us from the ghosts. So could this represent an age in history, as well as a personality type for individuals? Would this be a better way of understanding people? Think about that while I take a quick break. All right, I'm back. Good questions. Thank you for the questions in chat, and thank you for stopping in. And this is just an overview. Do not believe anything I say. This is for you to help build your map. You will see things I don't. Some things I see will be so obvious that you won't care about them. But take them with you as questions and possible hypotheses as you go in your journey, in your reading with us, reading the words of Socrates, in your midwifery journey to discover how to become free of your problems, in your mastery of the art that you're here to do, in the exploration of your dreams. Don't believe anything this guy says, but carry them as questions and puzzles. To carry a question is to be on a quest. And if we share that question, well, we're questing party members together, aren't we?
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
So yeah, stay curious, stay stung out there. So, big stream today. This is where we ended up with this possible, maybe, map of personality types that brings together everything that we've been reviewing lately. What are we going to do with these blocks of hypotheses? What if we arrange them together in a certain way? How many blocks would we need to take these squares and turn them into a cube?
Don't be disgusting.
Don't be disgusting.
What feminists want is to specifically ruin your life.
Maybe. But where would they sit on a cube?
Well, you're doing your best. Okay, so sorry, Ben. Go ahead. What were you saying?
Let's think about that until the next one. I hope that was fun. I hope you got a lot to wonder about and to hypothesize and question about. Thank you so much for the new people in the chat today. Thank you for the questions. And yeah, what would the significance of recognizing a group like that be? How much more is there to see in the hypotheses? How much can we wonder about and how much fun can we have along the way? Well, on that note, thank you so much for joining me. Follow along on Twitch or like and subscribe on YouTube. Join the Discord if you want a notification when we go live, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.